All right, folks, it's me again. Yes, we are live again with another topic that nobody's ever heard of, nobody's ever talked about. And yes, of course, that is the topic of God's existence. Does God exist? Wow. What an important question. It is for some people. It's somewhat important to me as a moral well-beingist. Although I think it's been given much too much weight throughout history. At everyone, we are live. Does God exist? Oh, yeah. Let's get the sharing going here. Just hit up the Discord. X. Wait a second. Is there actually a question mark at the end of that? Oh, there is. What? No, that's in the middle. Ah, I see what happened there. Interesting. What up, everyone? Welcome, welcome. Just getting set up for our Friday night, right? Friday night stream. All right.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello, indeed.
How's it going, Peter?
Good. Just did 2 gigs.
Oh, sweet. Peter, why do you not believe in the existence of God?
Why do I not believe in the existence of God?
Yeah.
Oh, God. I don't know if I have the energy to go through the trouble of breaking down every... It's not that I don't believe in something which I don't necessarily believe in, but...
What does that mean? Like you might
Pretty
believe in God?
much, I'm just going to shorten that and let you just decipher the rest of it. And
All right.
my thing is like that. Anything that's man-made religions always fall very short of anything. So
Yeah, but what about are you supposing that there are non-man-made religions or non-man-made gods? Maybe just because it's possible or something?
anything that we can conceive of is generally going to fall short of anything that actually is.
Okay. Well, I would suggest
I'm just a hypothesis more so than I'm not going to say that I believe in a particular god or
right.
I'm just saying that there could be some sort of intelligence. I'm just gonna leave it out there. I'm not gonna believe in it. I'm just gonna say I'm just gonna think it's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue against the possibility. When you say could be, yeah, that just means it's possible. I have no problem with that. But just because it's possible doesn't mean we can't know the contrary. For example, I know that there are no gods. I think I'm completely epistemically justified in that. One of the reasons is because I see overwhelming amount of evidence that concepts of gods are just man-made things like Star Wars
Exactly.
and like so it's possible that Star Wars is a documentary. That's possible. It's possible gods exist. It's possible leprechauns exist. It's possible that the parents who tell us, you were right, Santa doesn't really exist. They're just part of the cover up. Santa does exist. He travels around. He travels to the house of naughty and nice kids. I don't know what he means by naughty. I think this Santa guy maybe needs to be investigated. Um, but yeah, no, I'm highly confident in the piece of knowledge in my knowledge proposition that I know that gods don't exist. Now, would I say?
Gods in that sense, absolutely, because gods are man-made, you know,
Well, hopefully,
fiction.
hopefully not absolutely, but yes, I I do know that, but not absolutely. But um, we're often asked this question as atheists, like, what would you consider compelling evidence? Because I think there are millions upon millions of pieces of evidence that are submitted for evidence related to God's existence. I don't find any of that evidence compelling, but often what I've been saying lately, because I think it's probably would be the best evidence, if something happened within my mind to change like my epistemic standards towards the existence of God, in that like I would see faith as good reason to believe in the existence of God, for example. So I
Like
think if
Ali on Here She Ali, is it?
yeah, I don't
She
know.
made a bit of a U-turn, didn't she?
Yeah, she did. Also, someone who I'm talking to do some events with us is Apostate Prophet. Now he went from Muslim to atheist to Christian. That's a very interesting journey. I'm fascinated by it. Like I think him and I would have a fantastic stage worthy discussion, and I think he should be having some Pangburn stage discussions with others as well. But yeah, I mean, I think we can know a lot about the non-existence of gods by way of just you know just the track record of us constantly closing the gaps on God by way of science. There's that side of it, but the most compelling side is we have every good reason to know that gods and the concept of God altogether, the concept of a grand creator, that's just man-made stuff, I think.
Well, our our interpretations of it have been, I'd say, easy to prove false again and again.
Yeah, yeah. I think the easy ones are obvious, are the theistic gods. Those ones are easy to
I think
see.
that's theistic,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. The more difficult would be the deistic. Um, but I think deism uh, falls apart as well because again, I think it's just a man-made concept, moving the goalposts of God's existence. Behind like maybe a deeper shade, and I just don't find it to be really any more compelling. Maybe a little bit more believable for someone who's like a an analytical philosopher or something like that. What's up, William?
So, how you doing, Peter? How you doing, buddy? I think I'm ready to be more involved today. The other day I was tired and kind of overwhelmed with stuff.
Yeah, no worries. William, do you believe or have you ever believed in the existence of God?
Yes,
You have believed or you do believe?
both.
Oh,
Like
okay.
I was a Christian when I was a Christian when I was little. Then I became atheist. Then I went back to being a Christian when I got a little older.
Okay. How did you lose your faith the first time? What caused you to walk away from Christianity and all of a sudden lack a
Well,
belief in God?
Well, I would say it was a gradual process. When I was 11, me and my brother would watch this show, Ancient Aliens, and I
Yeah.
see alternative perspectives more. And then I kind of got overwhelmed, and I was like, became less connected to my faith, but I was still like with my faith. But then, like a year later, my brother my brother was became an atheist for a while, and then he influenced me with that kind. But then I looked into it myself, and I already kind of didn't want to believe in God. I didn't care about it as much as I used to. I became more like pro LGBT, and I just always had like a anxiety around my faith, so it was easy for me to not really care about it anymore. So when I get a reason to not believe in God, I just calculate on the opportunity. Like, yeah, I don't believe in God anymore. It was easy for me, pretty much.
Right. Okay. So you it was easy for you to drop your original God belief, and then you were an atheist, and then what brought you back to Christianity?
That's also a long story,
Well,
but I'll
tell
try
it.
to. Okay. Well, I used to be a really hardcore anti-religion guy when I was like 13, 14. I could be kind of obnoxious and annoy people sometimes.
Because you were just
Um,
like asking questions and
yeah. Oh, yeah. I have autism, and that was like a special interest that I would talk about all the time, constantly, like mostly online though.
do you ever wonder why they thought that found that annoying that you were asking questions and seeking clarity, or maybe pointing out logical issues or whatever you were doing?
Because no, normies don't like talking about deep stuff.
Yeah, and you were asking some deep questions. Sorry, my,
Yeah,
my my wife's just trying to order me some food.
that's all right.
Please.
When you said normies don't like talking about deep stuff, do you think that a person could have a preference for something, but they can't explain why?
Yeah, you mean like you're just assimilating the culture and you don't know why you really believe something?
Yeah, it's just a lot of times people answer to those questions is that's just how I feel, but that doesn't
Yeah,
really it doesn't really mean anything.
it's like that with politics.
Things don't come from nowhere. They're cause and effect. There are reasons for everything.
A lot of times
You
people just go with what they know.
think that could be applying to you, possibly?
I
Well,
Or
think I do that
but
sometimes.
before
I
we
try my
jump,
darndest not
Niv, before we jump to like the meta questions about William in particular, William. So yeah, you were asking all these questions. I just want to understand your story. You're asking all these questions, um, trying to get deep on the subject. That's annoying people. And then what happens? How do you get back into the religion? How do you become reconvinced that God exists?
Well, it took a lot
Okay.
because I was hard set on not believing in God. Um,
What does that mean? Like you just even if
I didn't
you
want
know
to.
okay.
I didn't like believing in God. I preferred to be an atheist.
And why is that?
'Cause I wanted to be. I like to have more freedom. I think very libertarian. I want to do what I want, and I don't like feeling like moral constraint on like judging people and stuff. I was also very liberal minded back then.
Okay. You were liberal minded. So did this stuff actually cause you to then lack a belief in God, like you didn't believe in the existence of God anymore? Do you think you actually reached that point, or were you just like angry at God or trying to avoid God?
I think it was a bit of both. Like I had reasons, but deep down, I thought maybe I'm wrong. So
Okay.
it was complicated.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So then all of a sudden you something happens, and then all of a sudden you believe in the existence of God again.
Well, when I was 15, I had an existential crisis with like about morality
Okay.
and consciousness, and but then I came out. I was depressed for a few weeks, and 'cause there's this video. I'm not gonna say what the video was, but it was like a toxic red pill video
Okay.
that led me on that downward spiral. And then a few months I got better, but as I got better, my I was the way I was like I was almost like I had to reconstruct my value system, and you know, and I was turning 16, so I was growing up at the same time.
Okay.
So I was figuring out who I am more completely. But this
Gotcha.
time I'm like I'm figuring out for real. Like I was looking, seeing what is a simulation and what is not. And eventually, um, my politics started to change. I started to be more wasn't liberal anymore. But I wasn't conservative either. I had become when I was like 16 or 17, I can't remember. I started to view belief in Christianity as less silly. I'm like, he's not really a man in the sky. There's more complex spiritual way to look at this. And I saw how Christianity kind of blew civilization, even if it's imperfect, even if it causes homophobic and problematic stuff. I was starting to see the good side of it too.
You were starting to see the good side of
And then
homophobia.
You have
no,
to
the good
take the
side of no, the good side of Christianity.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, William. Hey, William.
you have to take the
What's
homophobic
up,
with the
buddy?
non-homophobic.
No, I'm just saying that I started to see the good side, even though I was still aware of the toxic side.
Robin, I want you to come in like instantly as soon as he's done telling the transformative part of the story,
Okay.
and then we'll bring you in. So then, what happens? Do you just wake up one day and all of a sudden you're like, "Oh yeah, I guess I believe in God again, the existence of God."
No, I was trolling in this forum. A lot of things around, like my friends were Christian, and some things around me were making me think about it. But I was still committed to being atheist. And
Okay.
then there was this Christian group. Atheist group. And I was just trolling the Christians all the time. And then eventually, I'm like thinking, how about I give this a chance? I open my heart more.
Okay.
And then I felt like a spiritual experience when doing that, and I felt like this is better. I'm going to go in limbo with my life, and I can be on a better direction if I become a Christian.
Okay. So, then was there at some point? Can you recall when you were like, all of a sudden you started believing in God again? Like you were convinced
like-
that God exists.
Yeah, it was in December of 2017.
Okay. Okay. And do you recall the moment, or can you not recall?
Yeah, I can recall the moment, but it was a lot of things that had to lead up to that moment for me
Okay.
to actually open my heart to that
Okay.
stuff.
Okay.
Who are you hanging around with?
Well, I would say
Christians.
not always, but I will say that I was like with my Christian friends. Most of them were black, and most of them how do I put this? I was seeing where they were coming from more, and I was thinking like I don't know, like the spiritual part of me was saying to consider their perspective more or something. I don't know how to
All right.
explain
Was it a DEI move?
It was not a
Well-
DI move.
Let's
Sorry.
let's bring Robin in. Robin had a question. So now I think we got kind of a picture of what happened here.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna like, William. Like I was gonna ask you about that because that's what I like. Were you, your family was Christian? Is that correct?
Mom was non-religious. Dad
Uh-huh.
was Christian, but he didn't really talk about that much. He didn't really care that I was atheist.
Okay, So, like your friends, like your high school friends, your like your peer
Most of them
group.
didn't know I was atheist, but when I told them, most of them were cool. Some of them got like intense with me, but most of it was fine. Um, so it was mostly an internal decision. It wasn't me trying to impress anybody or be cool.
No, well, yeah. I mean, that's what I just wondered. Like, I mean, sometimes like changing that position from either direction is like some sort of pressure like in your community, what I mean, like I'd say
Oh,
if you come
yeah,
from an
there was
atheist.
some pressure because this Steven guy on that group I was in was kind of getting on me and kind of fear monger to me. But then I compartmentalized and just thought about it myself for a few days. So there was some pressure. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna give all the credit to the pressure.
So you mean there was pressure to
He was
come
he
back to
was kind of
Christianity?
harassing me, kind of like being intense with me. Like you're running out of time to repent.
Oh, like scaring you, trying to scare you or something, or
Yeah, and I'll be like, oh, so I'm gonna have a month or a week or what? I just kind of got overwhelmed for a minute there.
yeah, I mean, like for especially a young man, like I mean, I think that a lot of times too, religions will either do that or they'll love bomb like people, and I mean, like they may mean that, but I mean, a lot of times that is a welcoming to somebody who's in a position to where they're
Yeah,
needing some structure or they're needing some community or um,
yeah.
So and then now I guess, like, how do you justify this belief in God? Like, um, do you think you have, like, what would you give as your most convincing evidence for the existence of God?
Well, on an individual level, it would be my experiences, but to convince like secular people, that's really hard. I'm not very good at that.
No, that's fine.
It's more like a
I'm not.
process. Takes
Yeah,
time.
I would like to understand how the process, how that made God proposition, of that God actually exists. Uh, it started becoming more and more likely to you that this was true.
Yeah,
Um, and
yeah.
I'm just trying to.
Atheism started to seem like the crazy one. No offense to you guys.
And oh, okay, that's interesting. And what made atheism, if you mean it by a lack of belief in God, what made that crazy? Seem crazy?
Well, it started to make less sense to me. Like it made like the world would make more sense if there was a God.
Right. Can you be more specific though? Like what in what way would it make more sense?
Like, why do I have morals? Why do I love people?
Yeah. Yeah. Just by virtue of your biology, that's what I
Right, but
believe.
that's not satisfactory to me. That feels weird to look at it like that.
Okay. Fair enough. I understand that. So it
What if I
feels. Yeah. Go
what
ahead,
if I
Nate.
say it's just what if I just say it because the potential was there of something happening is the reason why it happened. It didn't necessarily need a being in order for it to happen. Would that help in an explanation or no?
I guess why is it meaningful? Like, like you could look at it.
Meaningful.
You ever heard the song Science and Faith by the
What is
Script?
I have
I
what is
mean,
not.
I
your
think
mean? What is your what does the meaning have anything to do with it? And you're saying it's about it being meaningful to you. Why
Yes.
why something happened? I mean, it just happened because the potential was there to happen, and you're saying you're not going to accept that because it's not meaningful.
I mean, I think that Williams like given pretty much the like one of the main reasons why most people are religious is the meaning part of life.
I don't like to be stuck in limbo and just play video games and goof around. There's more to life to
What do you
me than
mean by
that.
meaning? Do you mean
So,
like sentiment meaning or reason meaning?
Also, like, I mean, I'm an atheist, but why are you laughing?
I was thinking about what he said.
Oh, okay. I'm just making
I'm
sure
not
you're
laughing
not.
at you guys.
I'm
Sorry
just
about that.
making sure you're not trolling us or wasting our time.
Yeah,
Just
yeah, I'm
making sure.
serious.
Okay.
He laughed though. You shouldn't say why. That made him bust a flip.
Well, I mean, you can explore it if you want. Yeah.
What's
What
so
was?
funny?
What I was thinking about,
You
since
can.
it's a personal topic for me, so that's why I
Okay.
started laughing.
Gotcha. Okay. So. Okay. Like, I happen to be an atheist, but the most important thing in my life is maximizing well-being, physical, mental, and social health for myself and those around me. And that just fills me with meaning and purpose. And when I actualize that moral quest, it makes me feel like I've done something important and worthwhile. And what more could I want than that? Like, what what more is like a belief in God going to get me that being a moral well-beingist can't get me? Because I don't just sit around and play video games like you just described. You don't want to be sitting around playing video games, farting around. You want to actually be doing something meaningful. Most atheists I know are doing meaningful things and trying to do better by their standards.
Even the secular people can find great meaning in their lives. I was just saying, for me,
Yeah.
it was hard for me to, I don't know, stick to something and it makes sense. Like, for me on an individual level, I felt like I needed something more sometimes, like when nothing made sense.
You can't say makes sense because you said meaningful. You're saying something that because of my towel, my blanket could be meaningful. You're not saying it's about. Your argument sounds
Subjective.
about.
Like, I need something to be real, man.
You can't conflate
Yeah, but
what's meaningful to you to what makes sense.
what
If it's about, if it,
Well, I'm not
it's,
talking.
I,
It's not. But I'm not. It's not just about me, though. You know what I mean? I wanted to do what was right, and
yeah,
And you were
so
very young. You were very young when this happened, right? You said you were like,
right.
I mean, like,
17.
yeah. So like, that's a hard time for people to know what their meaning and purpose is in life. No matter, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I would even say that applies to Christians as well, though, too, at that age. Like, people will say, like, oh yeah, my pastor told me what my meaning is, and you'd be like, oh, what is it? And then they'll give you like 2 sentences or something, and then if you ask them one question about the 2 sentences, they're just like, I don't know, I haven't heard that part yet, or I haven't memorized that part yet. And that's not really meaning.
I just like, I'm thinking about like at that age, like if I had lost my faith at that age, how much different things might have been. I might have went back to Christianity. I don't know, because I think that is a very turbulent time in people's, and I think making decisions, like long-term decisions about things like that are sometimes hard for
Yeah. Sometimes I miss being an atheist, and I want to go back to that, but then I think I'd be going backwards.
Well, I mean,
So
do
I want
you
to keep moving forwards.
believe in God, though, William? Do you actually
Yes, I
have a
do.
belief? See, I
I believe
don't
in
think.
God. Like, I'm admit that my belief is tested often, but I definitely believe in God.
But see, I don't think that you could ever actually choose to just be an atheist. I
No,
think
yeah.
that you would have to be convinced that God, like you would have to lose your being convinced of a God.
Yeah.
Like you would have to lose that. So like I don't think that you can just choose to flop back and forth on that position. You can choose to call yourself.
Definitely not.
You can choose to call
I don't
yourself.
think. Yeah, I don't think I'm flip flopping. I'm trying to commit to being a Christian.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, I think I think that that's where you think that you need to be. That's probably what you need to follow, what you and if it's meant, if maybe as you get older, things may change on how you view some of that, or
Yeah, I'm kind of scared of flip flopping though, because then I think I'd be stuck in either way.
Doesn't matter because like God gave birth to himself in order to sacrifice himself to save ourselves from himself.
It's
pretty
From the
easy.
bad
simple.
guys.
It's
It-
easy for us though, like Peter, who don't hold the belief to see that. I think.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I get it, Robin. You're pointing to like how difficult the whole enterprise of God belief can be, coming in and out of religion. But I think there are critiques to be made here. It sounds to me, William, like you have been attracted to the religion for and to belief in God for what almost certainly are bad, unsound epistemic reasons, like bad standards of knowledge have led you to accept the God belief. Because when I ask you, you're kind of like saying like it was a gradual process. I understand that, but like the fact that that you aren't articulating like, okay, this particular moment or this argument or this, like, these are the reasons why you think God's existence is
I remember some.
ahead.
Okay, so in 2016, there's a debate between Sam Harris and William Lane Craig, and William Craig was making good points, but I was being stubborn. I was like, that overwhelmed me. But then I'm like, nope. I went back to my usual atheist way, stubborn. But that was
Mhm.
kind of like a little shake in my atheism because he was
Okay,
making good points about morality.
that's
That's
not the first
interesting.
time
Northern
Yeah.
Ireland.
that's not the first time I've heard that from someone who is a Christian or became a Christian by way of William Lane Craig about the Sam Harris discussion.
And that's the exact debate that I actually completely lost belief in God.
Right.
Period.
Well, that's interesting.
And
Kind
that's
of the
in
opposite.
that exact debate, in that exact same debate. Like after Sam got done with his last,
Both of them made good points. I'll be fair.
when he did his last thing, like I just sit there and was like, it's just all, it's not, none of it's real. I mean, it was like it just like everything just fell off
Like
the
a red
scale
pill
in my
moment.
eyes. Yeah, so that's so weird that the same debate had opposite effects.
Still miss the hitch, regardless of the inaccuracies. Still miss the hitch.
Yeah, Chris Hitchens, dearly
Was there a
missed.
vote after the audience on who won the debate?
There's
Or-
more abstract arguments, but it's hard for me to articulate them right
No,
now.
I'm saying,
Could
was there a
you
vote? Was there a
could
vote who won?
William, is it possible that you're wrong about all this and that God doesn't actually exist?
Well, the God that you propose.
I don't know.
You don't know if
I
it's
get
possible.
stuck in my own brain trying
Yeah.
to answer that question.
If you don't know if it's possible, I would say you're on the side of the proposition that you aren't convinced that it's impossible. So it sounds like you're not convinced that it's impossible that God does not exist, and that's it.
Are you
That's
saying that I'm an
interesting.
agnostic Christian?
No. Knowledge should have nothing to do with certainty. Knowledge should just have to do with confidence levels. Possibility ought not weigh into our epistemic standard. So
I'm at like a
no,
7, I guess.
no, yeah, you could be a Gnostic, theist. Now, something I should say though, I'm going to take this as an opportunity to clarify something. Oh, we're getting background noise from you there, William.
Yeah, I was getting water.
You're gonna settle that argument. Settle it.
But I just wanted to say that in academia, atheism is used differently than the most common usage of atheism in pop circles. So atheism in pop circles. Atheism is William. Can you mute just for a second while I explain this? Just for the
Yes,
record.
sir.
Yeah. Oh, he pressed leave instead of mute. So atheism in pop atheist circles, like the atheism of Matt Dillahunty, the atheism I'm fine subscribing to this definition as well. But for me, with regards to concepts, I just want to make sure people always know what I'm talking about. But when I'm doing academic work, I want to make sure I'm using academic terminology and definitions. But in pop circles, atheism is to mean a lack of belief in the propositions that gods or a god exists. And there are two different brands of atheism. So the belief part would be a lack of belief. It's not a positive claim that gods exist or gods do not exist. So there's that lack of belief part. And then there's the epistemic layer of that, or the knowledge layer of that. That would be making some kind of what knowledge propositions you're willing to make with regards to your lack of belief in God. So if you claim to know that there are no gods like me, then you would be considered a Gnostic atheist. And if you claim that you don't know if gods exist, but you're an atheist, then that would mean you're an agnostic atheist. Now, in academia, these terms are used differently. Atheism is actually the negative position, in that it's not just a position of lack of belief in gods, but atheism is the position that there are no gods. Agnosticism is that you don't know either way, or you can be convinced as an agnostic or in agnosticism that the question is unknowable, or you're a theist of some brand. And sometimes some people will separate theist and deist. I don't see any good reason to separate theist and deist in the sense of what we're talking about here in relation to atheism. But obviously, it makes sense to separate theism and deism if you're trying to figure out the differences and competing issues related to those two concepts. But I think deism is a kind of theism. It's just robbed of all of the pomp and circumstance. But I just wanted to point that out because there is a lot of talking past each other when academia comes into contact with the pop world, and it's a big problem. It's a big problem, when we talk to academic philosophers, and they're using atheism to mean the positive position that there are no gods, when most people, I would say, in the world of atheism are using atheism as a lack of belief concept. So it's something I get on academics about, that they should be talking about these terms, not just saying the academic terminology. They need to be aware of the popular usage of these terms as well, and responsible philosophers should be addressing both concepts. Just like if you're talking about like the question, what is a woman? There is a highly academic answer to that should include the traditional usage and the most up-to-date scientifically appropriate usage of what a woman is. So
scientifically appropriate.
Well, we're not getting into that topic, Peter, today.
Okay, let's go to religion. Let's go back to religion.
Yeah.
Can I say something about the terms?
Yes.
Okay, like when I first came out as an atheist, that lack in belief stuff, that's a Matt Dillahunty position. I would say that I followed that. I think that it allows people who are not as confident maybe in that position somewhat to shirk off the feeling that they have a burden of proof, or to be expected to answer, like a burden of proof.
Yep.
But I think that as a person becomes more confident in their position, I think that it's a very dishonest position, probably, to make a statement about. Like I don't ever make that claim anymore. That would be just totally dishonest to say I dislike belief in gods, because I actively believe there are no gods.
Right.
You know, and in fact, I would say that, you know, using what the word "no" as we use it, as I could always be wrong.
Yeah.
And I don't think that knowledge requires certainty. I say that I know that there are no gods. So,
Well,
but I think that
I
it
agree with
probably
you,
took,
Robin. Yeah.
I think it took me, you know, quite a while to get to that position. I wouldn't have wanted to make that assertion early on in my deconstruction.
I think the problem is, Robin, one of the main reasons why you wouldn't want to take on that burden or feel like you're taking on too heavy a burden is because so often, and it's incorrect, knowledge is taught to be some kind of game of certainty. That if you slam a knowledge claim down and you say, I know this is the case, that somehow you need to know that proposition is as true as the fact that you know that you exist. So there's a lot of like bad teaching in epistemology out there and knowledge making that can cause people to like, you'll get insane epistemic nihilists. Like I'll be sitting here saying like, yeah, but sir, you know that dinosaurs 65 million years ago weren't playing chess on Discord. And they'll be like, no, I can't know that. That's epistemic nihilism. Like that's where epistemology turns into insanity. Just because it's possible, this is why I harp all the time, possibility ought not weigh into our epistemic standards for that very reason. It is possible. And that doesn't need to be logically demonstrated for you to understand that it's simply something you cannot rule as impossible in an incontrovertible way. So that means there's just some tiny sliver in the modal sphere by way of logic that doesn't allow you to dismiss that thing, even though it's almost certainly the case that dinosaurs were, of course, not playing chess on Discord 65 million years ago.
Well, I don't think, like, I like modal logic drives me crazy, mate. So, like, I don't think that the possibility issue was as much as I just wasn't confident in addressing the arguments,
right?
Or answering the specific questions about my position, you know. But I've been at this long enough now. I'm not really good at it or nothing, but I've learned pretty much, you know, some fairly reasonable ways to address certain arguments, and you know, and I know I can recognize the fallacies that people use to try to you know, claim there's a God,
right?
And so I recognize my own position on why I don't believe in that God, on those gods.
Right.
So
yeah,
and I can articulate that and well enough to where I don't have to hide behind the I just like belief.
Yeah,
yeah, and I think that you and Thomas and Perry and Peter and all of y'all have helped me. Like y'all are probably more, you know, y'all have helped, and dawned on y'all have helped me get to that position.
Right. I think I think that's really good and healthy. Now, someone who probably doesn't think that that's good and healthy. How's it going tonight, Trey?
Yeah, I was gonna say Trey probably doesn't.
We come in peace.
That probably something is what's probably not healthy. That Robin has lost her faith and said that there is no God.
Yeah.
No, I'm more of a to each their own. If you want to claim that, I think it's good that y'all are claiming that. I think for the longest time, atheists have been like, well, I don't see enough evidence. And that's what we know as weak atheism. And I mean, that's just so weak. So I'm glad that y'all are kind of coming out of your shell a little bit.
Can I ask you a question?
I mean, for me, I've always been out of my shell for the most part. I went through maybe a small stint of what someone might call
But
soft
you've always
atheism.
been an
But
atheist, right?
I have
Do you
been.
think
Yeah,
we're happy?
I've been an atheist my entire life. So I've had the easy go of
Well,
all
look,
of this.
You didn't really have to come out of a shell.
I had to. The
I
hamster
never
had
had
to
a shell.
find his way out of the maze. But I'm going to ask a question. Do you think we're happy being atheists?
Well, I mean,
Or do you think that we
I'm
lack some sort of a depth of happiness? I'm not asking you, Travis. I'm asking
oh, you're asking Trey.
generally
Do,
accept.
do I think you're happy being atheists?
I'm an atheist, but I don't think about it anymore. Like
No,
it's
what was your question?
that's in the
Sorry.
past for me.
Who are you
But I
asking,
mean, do you
Perry?
think
Or
do you think
Peter?
we're happy people? Do you think we're lacking in stress and
No, I don't think so. I think
what? Okay.
depending on how much you value that identity or belief or whatever you want to call it, if you value it so much, then I think you might be more prone to being unhappy. When you make something your identity and it's you become obsessed with it and stuff like that.
I
I'm not
haven't
so sure
become
if that's.
obsessed. I just don't
I'm
believe
just
anymore. I've forgotten about it. It's
Yeah.
something, as I said, it's something in the past. I
Yeah,
don't
so
have to
that's probably
deal with it
healthy.
anymore.
It's kind of like not even something that you think about. That's probably I would lean more to that's healthy. But if you obsess over something and stress about it, then you might not be happy
Do
about it.
you
But
obsess and stress over religion ever?
no,
No?
yeah, I'm kind of like you. I kind of don't even think about it either. It's kind of
Hmm.
like
Okay.
just a status of being, I guess. Now I
Yeah.
listen to debates all the time. But, I like that. I like listening to. I just listen to Sean Carroll and
Do
Alex
you like
O'Connor.
listening to the
Yeah,
debates where the Christian wins?
No, this was an atheist debate that I was. Well, I don't know if it's a debate. It's more of a
yeah, they were
discussion.
having a
Sean,
discussion. Yeah, Sean Carroll and
Sean,
Alex O'Connor. Yeah.
yeah,
Are there
those.
any of those debates around, Peter? No, I'm just joking.
Well. Don't get me started.
I was just being a smart aleck. I'm sorry.
No, I believe that, like, in the debate form, yes, atheists have been destroyed by Christians because they didn't have good arguments.
I think it's good that
Yeah.
more people are saying like there is no because that might allow you to go on offense and be more like assertive in the debate. So
I used to. I'm just so past it. If you had asked me these questions like 20 years ago, like I was like a fucking bulldog.
Right.
I'm just too lazy
Well,
now.
well, for me, I must say that this has always been about well-being for me, and trying to understand, because I've never found anything deep about God belief, right? I've never believed in God. I've never found anything like deep or compelling or interesting outside of the sociological aspect of it, like the appeal of or like a true understanding of how people can really get there to cross the line where they are now convinced that God exists. Like, I understand the psychological aspect. I've come to learn a lot about the experiential aspect, but like crossing over and stepping that line and becoming actually convinced in your mind is, because I haven't been there. I haven't been to those so-called greener pastures. It's hard for me not to see the whole thing as, albeit an avenue to great high levels of well-being, but epistemically just foolish. by any good, sound, discernible epistemic standards. And that would include whenever someone says, like, I had a personal experience, this convinced me. My question right away is, my knee-jerk question is, yeah, but and some people are like, I had my personal experience while I was sleeping, like they dreamt something, right? And I'm like, yeah, but I mean, I've had dreams. I've literally I've had a dream of being abducted by aliens. I've had a dream, and it was so vivid, and it was so fucked up and scary and crazy. And then I woke up, and I realized I hadn't been abducted by aliens, even though it was a wild, crazy, scary dream. Now, I think I've had dreams with like godlike figures, and I've talked about a reoccurring dream I've had where I go to these certain places where I interact with other beings and stuff. But I think it's just, I think I shouldn't just say just, because that seems to diminish dreamlike experiences. But it's not that they're nothing. It's just, I do recognize though that these are mind dependent experiences. And I just wonder what it would be like to have a dream that I wake up and I attribute it to Jesus or to God, or like necessarily.
Can I share my mom's? Can I share? No, she don't watch this, so
yeah.
But I'm gonna share my mom's experience, because when I first lost my faith, me and her talked about this a little bit. And because she's been devout Christian all my life. My dad, he was kind of wishy-washy while I was growing up. He's a lot more devout now than he was. My mom, when she was a teenager, she was a middle child, and my grandmother was like her father had been murdered, and her mother was my grandmother was not an emotional person. And my grandfather was abusive, not like physically abusive, because my mom had an older brother who would have hurt him, but he was mentally abusive, and so he was very abusive to her. So she had a lot of problems. So she had this. They lived on this farm where there was like this great big cliff. And when she was like 16, she went to this cliff, and she had decided she was going to jump off of this cliff, that she just couldn't take her life anymore. And so she said she was standing on the edge of this cliff, just getting ready to just jump off, fall off this cliff. And she says that a physical being grabbed her and jerked her away from the edge of the cliff. She said, it wasn't like I heard a voice. She said she did hear her say, something say, no, you're not doing this. But she said that something physically grabbed her and pulled her away from that and told her no. And of course, she swears up and down that there was nobody there, and that she's convinced that was Jesus that did that. And when this woman tells me this story, there's no way that I could ever even try to convince her that this is not what happened. And I wouldn't.
What do you think happened?
I don't know what happened. I don't know. I'm not,
Well,
but like,
I can,
does anybody have any hypothesis as to why it may have happened?
Yeah, well, here, let's go through the likely scenarios though. Out of two potentialities that will weed out a lot. Was it almost certainly mind dependent? If in fact there was nobody there, I would say it was almost certainly her mind that manifested this occurrence.
Yeah.
So we can do some sorting of this. Now, if there was a person there who said no and grabbed her, and then just for some reason she's forgotten, or just like the person walked away, or that's another plausibility. But is there any plausibility factor that it was Jesus or God mind independently? I don't think there's any plausibility factor. I think that's just simply possible.
Yeah, me.
I
That's
think
the
it
way
was
I am
Muhammad.
too.
It was probably
That's
Muhammad.
what. That's the way I am too. But I think that I
Yeah.
could probably convince. I could probably be. I could probably convince the woman that I did not exist
Right.
more than I could convince her that that did not happen.
Right.
And so, like, I wouldn't. I mean, and like, she's 80 years old now. I'm not
Yep.
sure why in the world, even if I could convince her that God didn't exist, that I would want to take away her faith at 80 years old. You
Right.
know what I mean?
No.
Like, because I know what it was like to lose my faith at 50 years old. And, you know, so like, and that's pretty long, pretty late in life, I think, and it definitely would be. But like, I don't think I would ever try, but I would never try because that would just be something that would just make mine and hers relationship terrible. But that's, you know, that's where that's the story that she told
Well,
me.
yeah, Robin, and you
And
bring up a really important point there, that like for you to go in there like epistemically nitpicky on her experience to try and like pull it apart or to make her feel retarded for believing it or something like that would be deeply immoral in my view. For
yes,
you
it
to
would
do
be.
that,
And
given the
she would not
considering the
with me with
situation.
something.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Well,
she would
I-
be
I
right.
would say my
She
own
would
mother.
like she would be right to be like, like, even if you don't believe what I believe about this, why would you ever try to take this particular thing away from me? Now, there are so many atheists out there that think that truth is the ultimate good. At least they behave that way, where they would just like, you know, I'm not going to stand there and tell the appease this person's falsehoods, religious falsehoods, because truth is the ultimate good, like Richard Dawkins promotes and things like that, which I think is like that can really lead to evil acts very quickly and bad acts like the one we're talking about right now. I think we need to make physical, mental, and social health well-being primary to all of those epistemic quibblings.
Can I ask you a question in regard to
It's
that,
the same. My
Travis?
mother. Like, I mean, I would never even.
I want to ask you a question to that.
try and
Yeah.
Yeah, me
alter
too.
her
I got,
faith.
Yeah.
So.
I got a question on
Yeah,
that.
let's let Niv go and then we'll go to Trey. Yeah.
You said that you think that taking something away would be very immoral if it
In
was
that
very traumatic
circumstance. In
for
that
that
circumstance.
person.
Wait. I didn't say if it was very traumatic for that person. I'm talking about this particular circumstance. Now, if you want to offer a different particular circumstance, I can. But let's get straight what I was talking about. This wasn't hand waving away all epistemic challenging in all circumstances where there might be some trauma attached to what has happened. But in this particular circumstance, where Robin's mother was on the edge of suicide, literally on the edge of suicide, almost committed suicide, and then this happened. I think trying to go at this experience to try and diminish the goodness from it by due to epistemic quibbling with it, I think would be a very bad thing. But hopefully that's clear to you. But go ahead.
Yeah, I understand the pragmatism there and that particular circumstance. I was wondering if you would, like, I guess on a larger scale, it would be the same as well, right? Not just one particular person. Like if it was many, you would not try to take away their faith because of the harm it could bring to them emotionally.
It depends. So I'll give you an example. Like, I've been an outspoken atheist doing online debates and producing some of the, I would say, most influential live intellectual discussions in the God debate space. And I see a lot of virtue in that. But do I want those to lead to, you know, a heroin addict who has just found a faith in Jesus and that's causing their ability to get off heroin, causing that struggle to be a lot easier on themselves? Do I want them to lose that faith during this process? No, I don't. That's not what I want.
That changes the perspective when you're pushing back against a person that's arguing for religion, because that could be the case.
Yeah, but
The reason why they're letting religion slide is because the trauma that it could bring.
No. That's not the trauma. It's not necessarily the trauma that it could bring, right? It's very particularized, and nowadays, now that I feel like my philosophy is more mature, when I am speaking about this publicly, I do try to always make clear that the thing that is most important isn't whether or not you believe in God or not, but whether or not you are out there maximizing well-being for yourself and those around you, physical, mental, and social health.
Based off of being a pragmatist,
I'm not a pragmatist. I'm a consequentialist, and I know, but you said pragmatism a couple times here, so just let me clear this up. So I'm a consequentialist by way of my consequentialist moral quest to maximize well-being. That's the consequence metric, physical, mental, and social health, that is being used to measure the consequences of actions. And then I use virtue ethics in order to keep my moral quest rationalized and rational, keep me rational to that moral quest. So just so that's clear for the record.
Not you, okay? Just in general, a person being pragmatic and in letting the not pushing back against religion. Just because harm will be brought, or even arguing for the belief. Because at times I wonder if that might be the case with some people. That's what's taken into consideration, like with JP.
I don't do it out
he doesn't
of
really believe. He doesn't really believe, but not wanting to bring harm, or the pragmatism of preaching it. You're not really believing it, but just out of the benefit of the well-being.
Not all people, Niv. Not all people are better off by way of their well-being believing in the existence of God or being Christian, I would say. Not all people. There are people out there, for example, that are simply Christian because they're afraid of going to hell. And they're claiming Christianity that has caused them to believe that they believe God exists. And they're literally terrified and petrified of going to hell. And then I can see in that circumstance, it would be better for their well-being to lose their faith in God, to lack of belief in the existence of hell. I mean, to me, it's easy to see in that particular circumstance. So when I am engaging in a discussion, an epistemic discussion about whether God exists or not, my hope is that, for the most part, if people come across that stream, they'll understand that what I care most about is their well-being. Here are my reasons as to why I know gods don't exist. But I hope that people who hear my argumentation would not be led to being worse off by way of my arguments. And I think the evidence of this space, when we look at the reasons as to why people leave religions, lose their faith in God, and the kind of well-being outcomes that follow that, for the most part, I'd say for the most part, and this transition can take a while, atheists and non-believers tend to find a great amount, if not more, flourishing once they leave the religion. So,
I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Trey.
So earlier, maybe you can expand on this. I caught the word foolish when you were saying,
yeah,
I'm not sure what you meant by that. Could you what do you mean foolish? What was foolish?
So it was in reference to my epistemic lensing of the God belief issue. So from the perspective of good, sound epistemology, I think it is foolish to accept the belief of God, the belief in God on faith, because it's irrational to good sound epistemic standards.
Are you ready for pushback?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Wait.
So why, if you're so, how is calling someone epistemically foolish?
Well, I'm calling the
conducive
position.
to-
I'm calling the position epistemically foolish, right? Not the person.
So,
Yeah.
well, that position is something that the person holds.
Yep.
So you would say to that person that is epistemically foolish. How is that conducive to well-being to call them that?
Because I think
To say that.
I think there in the war of ideas, there are many different ways of going about challenging what you consider to be bad ideas. I would consider faith as a way of knowing that God exists to be a bad idea from an epistemic perspective. So, and I would never challenge that if I didn't think, like by way of the examples I just gave to Niv, that there wasn't a lot of well-being to be gained by going to war with the idea of faith as a justification. Now, I do understand, just like when I critique Donald Trump, or I critique, the bad, evil things I see Donald Trump do, or when I critique anything publicly, I do understand the risks that when I speak, and Jordan Peterson actually states this very well. I think it's one of the things I agree with him on a lot, is in that, like, in order to speak your mind about an idea or engage in the war of ideas, you risk offending people. And by way of offense, you may in fact cause well-being detriment to some people. It is a risk, but I should say that with regards to the war of ideas itself, my hope is that I'm constantly pushing towards in the right direction of maximizing well-being in the dialectic, as opposed to in the wrong direction. So promoting good sound epistemic standards across the board, I think is an overall good thing to do, and a responsible thing to do from a knowledge making and education perspective. But I do understand that by doing that, I may be causing harm to some people.
Well, so that's kind of a juxtaposition there, or that you're kind of like breaking your own code, because you're saying that I'm okay with offending people, I'm okay with hurting people's well-being, if it means that I believe I am establishing a better epistemic framework for people.
I don't think that's quite right. Just let Trey and I go back and forth for a bit, because this is.
I wanted to say, like, do you think that the person is foolish, or they hold the belief for foolish reasons?
I said the position is foolish. Yeah. So so Trey, but what I just explained is that it's inevitable as human beings that when we engage in the war of ideas, when we open our mouths, we just like you, we inevitably might offend or cause detriment to other people's well-being. But in the war of ideas, I am fighting for, if we examine the temporal layer, the over time, what ideas are leading to more maximization of well-being over time? Is it worth the sacrifice for me to be risking, offending people, risking, turning people away from a religion that's, causing them let's say, a high amount of social, physical, and mental health in their life by way of the community they get, by way of the solace they get in Christ and in Jesus? When I look at not just the here and now, but when I look at the temporal layer of this, yes, well, like most people, for example, aren't in the heroin addict situation. Like, remember the example I gave you about the heroin addict?
If I could
So,
conclude,
just let me put the cap on this. So most people are not in the heroin situation, the extreme situation where I wouldn't want to rob them of their faith. But so the majority of people are in this war of ideas in a way that isn't like a life or death situation like the heroin addict. So I understand that space. I understand that in order to respect that space, I must engage in a good faith, helpful way. That's why I have the necessary Pangburnian constraints on the dialectic, on that battlefield. That's why I bring patience, a care for well-being, lightheartedness, inspiration, fallibilism, all of these things I find virtuous to the conversation to help maintenance all that I'm putting into the public dialectic. And I do feel that all of the things I am employing is and can be demonstrated to be moving generally people who accept these ideas in a more positive direction with regards to flourishing by way of well-being.
How do you demonstrate that?
I want to ask both of you guys a question.
Just wait, Niv. We're on something really important. So I can demonstrate that my methods are, from a cognitive science perspective, cause people, when genuinely followed and genuinely practiced, cause people to become more cognitively flexible. And religions like Christianity have been demonstrated to generally cause people to be more cognitively rigid. So I am moving people in a direction of cognitive flexibility, which is associated with maximization of health across the board. Cognitive flexibility should be the goal. So
I want to stay on this thing though, because you will offend people. You admit that you will offend people because it's temporary, and then you justify that by believing that they reach some sort of a higher level.
Wait. Not them as individuals, but the general mean of people who come across my debates or talks. Or
so people that listen, people that watch, not just the person talking or the person you're talking to.
I'm talking about the general mean, not necessarily one-on-one. Thomas and I talk about this a lot in a very high resolution way. The difference between the therapeutic coaching situation one-on-one. By the way, I had 5 really amazing coaching sessions this week with philosophical coaching clients, and we had a lot of fun, and they were brilliant. And anyone who wants to sign up, the first session is free. Feel free to get in touch with me. But so there's a difference between the one-on-one therapeutic session. There's a difference between us being live on the air and us being in an off-air setting. There's different stakes when something's being recorded into history and when something's not being recorded into history. There are and there's different stakes in the war of ideas in general. But I find it, and I'll give you the Donald Trump example. I find it imperative for me to be pointing out the evil that Donald Trump engaged in when trying to, extort the Ukrainian people for a $500 billion mineral deal while they were under war duress from Russia. When I say that publicly, yes, it's a very offensive opinion to millions upon millions of people, and it could cause detriment. But I think it really is it's me going to war in the war of ideas against an idea that I believe to be fundamentally anti-moral well-beingist. So I feel the same about the evil Christian God. So I can recognize that the evil Christian God, as evil as I see it, that's what's more important than me pulling an individual from the evil Christian God is still their well-being, even including in the case of the heroin addict or whoever. And when I challenge that God or call the God evil or say that Jesus was by no means perfect, I'm not trying to do bad by their well-being. I'm trying to offer them a direction that can lead them to higher levels of well-being over time. And that would be losing Jesus, losing Yahweh, losing the fear of hell, losing the false promise of an afterlife, all of these things. And then, and then being able to form their own meaningful ethical stances. And I see that as like, there might be inconsistency, but I think responsible moral stances and a responsible morality are going to have ideological caveats like this that are important. For example, if you come across, Trey, a heroin addict that is doing heroin because they're so scared of the threat of hell that it's driving them to be a heroin addict, and you come along and meet them, I think it would be morally irresponsible and bad of you to try and convince them further that hell is in fact waiting for them. You should want them to lose that belief in hell if that's truly what's causing them to be a heroin user.
Travis, quick question.
Wait, no. Keep it on, Trey. I will open up the mics. Everyone, please mute until I open up the mics again. What do you think about that? I would love to hear your answer to the heroin addict situation, though, because I feel like you as a Christian are going to feel like what's most important is for you to for their soul to be saved for Jesus. And to me,
what's to get off heroin?
So you would want them to get off heroin more than that's more important than their salvation.
Heroin, dude. Let's go one problem at a time, dude. Like, you're not going to take a heroin addict and then turn them into a saint by showing them the Bible.
I'm just because I know you and I talked one time, and I asked you what was the most important thing for you in the world, and you mentioned that basically saving souls for Christ or salvation was most important.
For me, but I'm not here to like convert you or convert anybody else. I mean, I don't mind witnessing and I don't mind talking to atheists, but what I find interesting is that you kind of want to, it's okay for you to crack a few eggs. You got to crack a few eggs to make an omelet. You have to offend people to get your point across, so that one day the overall diaspora can become atheist, because that is only in your view, because this is not everybody's view. In your view, that is a higher level of thought.
Well, and I can put it to you this way as well, by way of bad, good, or good, bad, right, and wrong. So with regards to my well-being, consequentialism, if it is a fact that I deliver my regular moral well-beingism sermon and my epistemic gripes I have with Christianity, and a heroin addict comes across that video on the internet, and they watch it on YouTube and they're like, yeah, you know what? He's right. And this is a heroin addict that recently got out of heroin and was pursuing a life following Jesus and the Gospels and trying to appease God. And then they came across that video and they all of a sudden reverted back because of me. that would be a bad thing. But that doesn't mean that I wasn't righteous in my pursuit. Does that make sense? My pursuit,
that they
my
got,
sorry.
got back into heroin because of your video, and that doesn't mean that you're not righteous. Well, it's not your fault.
It's bad.
I don't
It's
think
bad.
I don't think it'd be your fault.
Right, but the outcome is bad. It's not what I want. That's a bad outcome, and I would say that I caused bad in that consequence, but it was still righteous because of what my intentions were.
Okay.
So just like war, everything about World War II, bad, just all bad. But the United States of America and Canada, righteous in invading and pushing Nazis back. So I just, so I think it's important to say that in any situation where any of my words, and it was demonstrated to me that my words caused a detriment in someone's well-being, that would be bad. And whether or not that was a righteous bad or a wrongful bad would be determined by whether my intentions were justified based on my own moral quest.
Your own. Yeah. Well, that's also concerning because anybody can have a moral quest. And if it's going to be subjective, then anybody's, my moral quest can be to convert everybody in this room.
Yep.
And you might say that that's bad. So first of all, how do you square away that subjectivism? How do you square that away? And then two, how do you, okay, so you defend calling people, not calling
people's ideas foolish.
Process foolish.
Yep.
At risk of offending them.
Yeah.
And you believe that this is for a greater good.
I think it's righteous to do that. Yes.
Yeah, righteous. However, you are offending maybe a significant amount of people. Maybe even more than you're
I've offended
to your side.
I like by way of the Sam Harris, Jordan Peterson series, for example, I have offended hundreds of millions of people by that.
Nice.
Surely.
Nice.
But offense isn't always bad, right? Offense isn't always bad. Offense can be good. It depends on the consequences that offense would have on their well-being. In some cases, it would be benign. I would actually say in most cases, the offense, the amount of offense they would have by like watching Jordan Peterson versus Sam Harris, by some of the things Sam Harris says, I think most of the offense would be benign. And some of the offense would actually be good for their well-being because it might crack open some cognitive flexibility. But if it actually did produce badness with regards to their well-being, it wouldn't make it wrongful. I think it would still be made righteous. But
what about consent?
How do you square away the subjectivism within it all?
Yep. So I think, to me, and this ultimately comes from my feelings about reality, that it is that almost all people that have ever existed, you might find some fringe cases, but almost everyone, like almost certainly everyone in this room, everyone you'll ever meet, everyone almost that's ever existed, wants to pursue health instead of sickness. So if that is the case, which it's easy to demonstrate that is the case, and if that is the case, my axiom of health is preferential to sickness, the next logical step would be to form a system of good, bad, right, and wrong that is based on health consequentialism, which is my system, which is simply to satisfy that fundamental desire and need in myself and those around me of maximizing their health, their well-being. So that's why I think and physical, mental, and social health covers everything within the purview of the human experience. It covers spirituality, religion, everything fits into physical, mental, and social health. I mean, think of the effects, the positive and negative effects that like spiritual things have on people. Like I think this term and the way I use it captures everything within the purview of the human experience. So for all of those reasons I just outlined, I think my system is not only drastically coherent to our fundamental desires as human beings, but it's also correspondent. It's once you accept that fundamental presupposition that health is preferential to sickness, there are facts about our health. We can then engage in a fact-based moral system, but it's not. You have to presuppose. You have to subjectively arrive at health is preferential to sickness, which, by the way, everyone essentially does. But I'm saying you need to prescribe that to yourself, and that's going to be ultimately born of your sentiments. Does that make sense?
I think you created like an obvious dichotomy, but what about when, health and sickness, what about when it's not so obvious? And what about if it's like, let's say you base everything on something that is like a Whataburger or a Chick-fil-A, then you have a whole lot more that you need to work on, because
there are. Well, it's not as bad as you think, because this is why fallibilism is so important. The understanding that we're not going to have access to perfect knowledge or certainty on any of the decisions we make, and we don't have perfect access to the facts anyway. So with regards to something like how's Chick-fil-A going to affect my body versus McDonald's, like what's a better prescription for myself? There is actually a factual answer to that, depending on what you order, right?
Let's take away health. Let's say that, like, we just grant that. But how do you deal with people's just specific flavor? Like, I like root beer. Well,
desire.
You like Coke. Like, let's strip the health of it, because they're both bad for you. Probably.
How
do you deal with that?
Well, there is no stripping the health, first of all, because when your desires are directly connected to physical, mental, and social health.
Let's assume it's the same health, these two decisions.
Left
and right.
Then your desire, that value sorting by way of your sentiments is going to make that choice. And then whether or not it's good, bad, right, or wrong for you or for those around you is going to have to do with the well-being outcomes. But that sorting issue, like that desire issue, that value issue you just brought up, that's just something that's sorted by our sentiments. And I think modern cognitive science modeling understands that process clearly, descriptively, and that's where we engage in value making, including all of our values that arise.
I've been wanting to ask you on this, because maybe this is something that I haven't really heard you talk about. So it all sounds fine, right? First of all, I don't have a problem with what you believe. But what is your wartime ideology? Because at some point you're going to deal with people that don't care about your well-being.
Yes.
So they prefer their well-being over yours. So
this applies to.
You have to be able to have a wartime philosophy.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and that's in high resolution academic philosophical circles, you'll even find people who are not prepared for this because they haven't done the fully academic issue. And Thomas is rubbing his hands because this is where this is where we start getting into high resolution philosophy. This is why we must delineate between good, bad, right, or wrong. Or else many people's systems are just going to seem so incoherent when you start bringing up what about war? What about self-defense? What about, all of these things? Like, and that's where like Jainists, like Jainism and some of these like non-aggression things start becoming ridiculous, because if they had a child and their child was some sicko was trying to violate their child in front of them, and they were standing there with this like, no, I believe in no aggression, like, even though they might say that in the moment, it doesn't seem consistent with what the human being is and what would drive us to want to intervene and violate the consent of the perpetrator. So for me, yeah, we can use World War II as an example, and everyone can simply graft that on. I'm sorry, my daughter's crying in the background, but everyone can just deal with it. Yeah, shame, Journey, shame. No. But so yeah, World War II. The question is, some people would be like, yeah, what the United States did to the Nazis was good. Blow their brains out and shoot them with bullets and make them bleed and all that stuff. Torture them. Yeah. Light them on fire. People say that's good. To me, nothing about that is good. That's disgusting, awful, terrible. Why? Because I give my full moral consideration to all human beings. That doesn't mean I'm not going to desire or feel it righteous to lock some human beings up, like any prisoners of war in Nazi Germany. And but that's dealing with the good and badness of it. So yeah, bad, even if it's a Nazi, bad to shoot them, bad to blow them up, bad to burn them. But in World War II, righteous to blow them up, righteous to shoot them, righteous in some cases to burn them. But it's also a good thing and righteous to not lose track of the moral consideration they are due as another human being from you. That's what I prescribe. So, for example, with a dead Nazi corpse, is it okay to violate that corpse and do whatever you want with it because it's just a dead Nazi corpse? No. It should be given your full moral consideration. You've eliminated the threat. The human being is dead. The corpse should be treated with respect. And for the most part, I would say military in developed nations, when I've studied military policy, how we deal with enemy dead, how we deal with, the kinds of conduct and what is considered good conduct or righteous conduct versus bad conduct and wrongful conduct. This is really important to not lose track of our moral consideration for ourselves and those around us, including those that hold ideas that we detest or those that may in fact need to be killed during righteous war. Does that make sense? The delineation between good, bad, right, and wrong with regards to war?
Yeah, I mean, you used a clear example again, like World War II. The Nazis are fighting the whole world. Well, what about with, first two things, what about with something like the Korean War, where we're just trying to spread democracy, or like the Vietnam War, or the Afghan War, the Iraq War. And then how would you go about, in this philosophy, training soldiers? Surely you're going to use young men to fight, right?
Yep. You need to have policies that are grounded in the present, because when war times happen, the only righteous wars I see are wars that are fighting to preserve well-being of humanity at some level for the preservation. So expansionist Nazi Germany that seemed dead set to take over the world and kill anyone who was getting in their way. Eventually we find out they're committing a genocide by way of the Holocaust. It's made righteous to go to war with that because the goal is to stop those who are acting detrimentally towards the well-being of others. So that's made righteous. So in any other war, that must be the policy. The policy must be, we are doing this to preserve well-being, physical, mental, and social health at some level. So in the Iraq War, one of the things would be to, one of the the overarching goal, I would say, was to apprehend and bring to justice the evildoers of 9/11, and also try to garner some heavier control over terrorism and the terrorist regimes that operate in some of these regions in Iraq and some in Iran and Afghanistan and whatnot. So, yeah, I see those goals as righteous. Now, are there going to be wrongful acts while these operations are carried out? Yes. I remember something. There was a fallen Iraqi soldier who died with an erection. This video really stuck with me. He died with an erection, and the military personnel were joking around and smacking the erection with their rifles of this dead person. That is deeply bad and wrongful in my view. And that would be things that if I was in charge, this would be the kind of conduct I would be trying to uproot out of my regiment, out of my anything under my control. And because it violates, you know what it reminds me of? This recent thing where people can't understand why it's a bad and wrongful thing to celebrate the death of other people and to find joy in the bad.
I mean, people are desensitized. So in your philosophy, you'd be okay with a preemptive strike. That's okay.
So a preemptive strike is made righteous. There's nothing good about it. It's bad, but a preemptive strike is made righteous through the intentionality. So if I look at Israel's actions in Gaza, right? For the most part, I've been fine with Israel's conduct in Gaza. There have been some failures, and there is this. I really wish, and I really wish that there was some way to have dealt with the with Hamas in a way that didn't put so many civilians at risk. But if you study what was going on and what the military had to deal with in trying to bring to justice and trying to save hostages and whatnot, it's Mission Impossible type stuff, right? And the IDF made a lot of mistakes. There were wrongful things there, but out of all of the action that has been taken, I think generally the IDF has been righteous. That's where I'm currently at with that situation. And but that doesn't mean I can't see some of their behavior, some of their actions, some of the things said from the greater powers in Israel to be wrongful and inhumane, but made wrongful by way of the well-being consequentialism.
Now, to bring it back to still consider war, but to bring it to a debate, like philosophical war, if you will, or an intellectual war, if you will. Mm-hmm. It seems like your philosophy will struggle against someone who is a philosophical barbarian.
Yes.
Someone that doesn't think like you, that does not care about your rules, that will use your rules against you, that will, first of all, you probably wouldn't even want to talk to somebody like this.
Well, I do. But for me to expect it to be a good faith, helpful dialectic against people who just, want to wipe me from the face of the earth, for example, is a philosophically is kind of an unrealistic expectation if that is their overarching goal. So in situations like that, I could enter the arena, but I would understand that I would not expect a fruitful dialectic, because my minimum requirements for a fruitful dialectic are good faith and helpfulness. But in those situations, it would be irrational, based on what I know, to expect a fruitful dialectic out of whatever this gong show is going to be. But nothing about what I do really at Pangburn or with my philosophy is very popular at all. I wish it was more popular to engage in a good faith, helpful conversation with people. I wish it was less popular to engage in like McDonald's level or McDonald's dumpster diving level philosophy and political debates and things like that. The internet is full of it, and that is what gets the clicks. That's what gets the watch time. There's a reason why the Pangburn subscribership goes up like this and down like this, up like this, down like. We hardly make any gains with regards to our subscribers, because, and it doesn't matter if we release events that are people are viewing 700,000 views, 1.2 million views. Alex O'Connor, Dinesh D'Souza, 6.5 million views on just one of the videos of Sam Harris, Jordan Peterson, an accumulated probably 7 million views with all of the different versions of Dillahunty and Peterson we've released. And people always ask me, why do you guys have so few subscribers? Well, what we are doing is not satisfying the algorithm at all. On a event by event basis, yeah, people are excited, but then they see, but these guys platformed these guys, and then they did this, and then I saw a video of Travis Pangburn saying he hopes Jordan Peterson gets well from his illness. I hate that guy. I'm not subscribing to this motherfucker, and then, I'll be critical of Jordan Peterson's ideas over here. And then people say, you just hate Jordan Peterson. That's all you are, is a hateful motherfucker. And then they will unsubscribe. So being honest, following my virtues and my moral quest on the internet is not fucking popular. In fact, this causes me to, just scrape by financially. The thing that would make me really fucking rich would be to do what David Pakman does and just pump out a constant flow of tricky propaganda, or what Kyle Kalinske does, some tricky democratic propaganda. Oh, fuck, would I be swimming in the money? But for me, that money would not feel righteous by my moral standards. If, I love that I'm able to make some kind of living doing what I do. And, and I have had some triumphs. I'll say live on the air here, I made $250,000 profit for the company in one event one time. I'm not going to say what event that is, but there is money in what I do. And sometimes the stars do align. But as far as like Pangburn as a brand that's like, why doesn't Travis just do this? He would grow way more subscribers. It's not about that. It's never been about that. Travis is weird. He's saying all this shit, and he's about to put on a debate, and he's saying he doesn't want moderators on stage, and he's saying if you need a moderator, that means you're an amateur. I'm just telling people what I think is the truth and what I actually do believe. But I also understand it's not the best. It's nowhere close to the best business model. In fact, it's often just shooting myself in the foot. But I think it is the right and good thing to be doing. So,
dude, I've watched your debates. They're probably honestly what got me into the watching and listening to podcasts and stuff like that, and be able to defend your stuff and so I've seen your debates for a long time, and that is what I like about them. I hate that propaganda stuff. So anyway, I appreciate what you've done in the space for sure.
Me too,
Thank
Trey. I think it's like I think when we had these conversations, I want to say, like, I think one of the important things is consent. Like, I think that, like, when you come in here, Trey, or Brody, or whatever, you're consenting to have these conversations in a way. And I think that that makes a big difference on if, like, I, as an atheist, go out and seek out people who are not consenting to participate in these types of conversations, and I try to force this my position on them. So like because I think though that when you step into the room to have the conversation, you are sort of consenting to having your position challenged. And I think that's important. Like, I don't think that we should just randomly go pick off people on the streets and try to, like, push atheism on them. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I think that's an important aspect.
I think it is too, Robin. I think that's a really good point. That's an important layer. When people click on debate videos, like on Pangburn debate videos, they understand it's a debate. They understand it's like a God believer versus a non-believer. So yeah, I'm kind of speaking to the edge cases where someone might just be like clicking through YouTube, right? And these are like so edge that they're like, we're really quibbling the edge cases. But where some 18-year-old might be who doesn't know much about the God topic, but they believe in God, and they're just flipping through the internet, and then they see me like saying that this person's view is a foolish view for this reason, and then they're like, oh, I don't want to be foolish, and then by way of that, all the relationships in their family break down because they're no longer a Christian, and they come up to me and talk to me like a year later and say, I saw your video and now I don't talk to my family anymore and my life is hell, but at least I don't believe in God anymore. And Matt Dillahunty, actually, to his credit, tells people that, like, it very well might be better for your life to LARP with regards to your family as a Christian or as a Muslim or whatever. You do have to weigh the pros and cons by some metric with regards to whether or not it makes good sense for you to kind of come out of the closet as an atheist.
Yes, as recovering from religion, that's one of the things that whenever we talk to people, first we tell them to make sure that their safety is first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if they're someone who can be kicked out of their home, or like people from Muslim countries actually have to use like what is it? Where you calling in with what is that thing where you use? I can't think what they're called. Where you use like it sends your
a cloned phone
IP
or whatever. Oh,
well,
a VPN. VPN. Yeah.
A VPN, yes. So like they'll have to use a VPN because a lot of times it would be illegal for them to even call into that. The recovery.
Yeah. Sorry, Robin.
And so like we always are like, that's the first thing. You've got to make sure that you're safe and that you're not going to lose, you're not going to be put out on the streets or lose your home or lose your, where you live and your means of survival. This is not, it's not worth that. Like that's what you got to take care of you first and get yourself in a position to where you can make that choice without harming your well-being.
Mm-hmm. Trey, I wanted to say, I just want to say quickly, I really appreciate your questions because they're very good questions. It's not often that I get such good questions about my ethical standards and how they actually apply in practice. So, yeah.
Yeah, I have had the privilege to be on your stage once, and that was cool.
Yes,
that was awesome.
I recently, like I said, I watched that Alex O'Connor and Sean Carroll debate. Alex O'Connor asked Sean Carroll about, do you have any, do you believe that things should be justified, right? Or like, do you believe things should be justified? And Sean Carroll said, we don't have a right to, I would go so far as to say we don't have a right to have any justification for a belief, because, he believes that the universe just is. It doesn't have to make sense to you. So that is,
I think
the universe
that's
is a brute fact.
I think that's Sean Carroll's lack of philosophical knowledge and education. Sean Carroll's a brilliant man, maybe the best physics communicator in the world. He suffers by a lack of lightheartedness, but there is a justification baked into everything. So if someone's saying like the universe owes me a justification, then obviously like from like that low resolution perspective, yeah, the universe doesn't owe you shit apparently. But it's happy to give you a lot of the stuff you need, like oxygen and the odd skin cancer. But hey,
but the universe exists, so we are justified in accepting the universe, I think.
So how do you square away that everything, like PSR, principle of sufficient reasoning, everything has to be justified? So that itself, how do you justify that? And then
PSR
on and on.
Yeah, PSR typically. Well, let's for the record, let's read I want to read the high resolution academics into this, because this gets misunderstood all the time. I'd rather read this than go off the top of my head. Okay. This sandwich is so good. For every act. Sorry?
I was fixing to ask if you were eating tacos.
So, principle of sufficient reason, PSR states, for every fact, event, or existing thing, there is a sufficient explanation for why it is so rather than otherwise. It is often associated with Leibniz, who argued that nothing happens or exists without a reason, even when that reason is unknown to us. Different formulations vary in strength. Causal version, every event has a cause. Explanatory version, every contingent fact has an explanation. Strong metaphysical version, every truth, including necessary and contingent truths, has a sufficient reason. The PSR is central to many cosmological arguments for God. If the universe is contingent, the argument says it must have an explanation outside itself. Critics argue that the universe might simply be a brute fact, or that applying the PSR universally creates problems involving infinite regress, free will, quantum events, and the explanation for God. So PSR and labels like this, which I consider them to be highly generalized, highly spectrumized, and used in many different ways, like I just outlined, different formulations. So I don't use it. But the idea that like the universe must, because of PSR, the universe must have an external cause outside of itself. That just doesn't need to be the case, right? So it's like Sean Carroll probably said about this, is that the universe is best understood as a brute fact in and of itself. I think we can do better than that. We can say that at least what the universe is fundamentally, or where the universe is born out of, you can even say, by way of Big Bang or whatever, is that what seems to be logically necessary here is that there must be an infinite state of potential, Why infinite? Because it deals with the problem of an actual first cause out of nothing, which logically seemingly can't work based on our understanding of logic. Infinity's way less of a problem. Infinity, it could just be the case that reality is infinite at the most fundamental level. Not a problem logically, like something literally from nothing. It's just radically contradictory on its face. Because if we're talking about absolute nothing, like true nothing, that means no potentiality. I just talked to Graham Oppie about this, by the way, and that potentiality layer is often, I feel, is often not stressed enough, and sometimes, can cause a deer in a headlights look. But if we're talking about absolute nothing, there's no potentiality for something, and then now there's something. So we're not talking about, if we're invoking any of our logical systems, we're not talking about absolute nothing. We're talking about something that at least has the potentiality. So to deal with that problem of absolute nothing, we say infinite, so that this thing at this layer, reality at the most fundamental layer, didn't need a cause because it's just always been. So infinite state in the physics sense of you can have a pre-state, post-state, a present state. State in physics is just a way of describing a place where potentiality could live. So infinite state of potential because there needs to be the potentiality for something if there is actually something. So if we look around, we see there is something. We look at our own experience. So I say infinite state of potential is what's logically necessary at the foundations of reality to have what we have today. It doesn't need to be a god, doesn't need to have any other traits except for that. And it also doesn't mean that things need to happen. It just so happens, it seems, that something did happen in our Big Bang. Maybe there are other Big Bangs, maybe there are not. But if I'm to place my bet dealing with issues that I think PSR are pointing to, I would treat, when we talk about the universe as a brute fact, I would say that brute fact is that whatever's going on must be infinite state of potential based on our current understanding of logic.
And see, I would just say the universe exists, and I don't have, I feel like that if I don't know anything else about it, then anybody who is trying to assert that a God created the universe, I feel like that they are the ones that are responsible to demonstrate that. I'm sort of like Matt on the I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm not a physics person. I've learned a little bit by listening to people about, but I don't go into big details about that right there. I think the Big Bang seems to be pretty much the consensus within the field, and so I don't care a bit to say that I think that happened. But I can just say that I don't know how the universe got here. I don't know why it's here. I think maybe that they think that there's a lot of the consensus is that most of them think that it could not there's no way it could not exist, right? Most of them don't think that there's a possibility that the universe couldn't exist. And so but I don't think that I have to justify not believing in a God creating it because of that, because I think that if they want to add that entity into it, then that is something that they need to demonstrate.
Well, y'all both just said that, Travis, you said that there is an infinity, and that's the brute fact.
I said that's the most, that's the most reasonable bet. Yes. Yeah.
Most reasonable bet. And then, Robin, you just said that
he likely knows more about it than I do.
But you just said that you wouldn't have to justify. So it seems like y'all agree that some brute facts do exist, or you're willing to bet that some brute facts do exist. In that case, what's to stop somebody like me from saying, well, you know what, God is just a brute fact and I don't have to justify it to you?
But
Well-
but the universe does. All I'm asserting is that the universe exists. So, like, do you deny that the universe exists?
I don't. But you said
Okay,
that you don't have to justify. What do you not have to justify? Could you repeat it
I
again?
mean, like
Can we
Like-
just before you give an answer, just for the record, for the audience, a brute fact is a fact that is true but has no further explanation for why it is true.
Okay.
So, yeah, go ahead, Robin.
Well, I mean, I'm not asserting anything beyond what we both recognize exists. Like, you know, my personal incredulity about the existence of the universe and how it came into existence is in no way like my position on the universe does not help you demonstrate your God.
Okay, hang on. So
Like,
you're
you know-
saying the universe exists, and by the way, I agree with you. But what if somebody says, okay, like no,
they
it
say
doesn't.
no, it doesn't.
Yeah, yeah. How do you
Well,
justify it?
I mean, like that sounds like solipsism to me or something. I don't know. Like, I think when somebody argues that the universe doesn't exist, that they kind of like they're not.
Well,
Like, if you go back into like solipsism,
But do you have to justify something?
so
do you
so
have to?
let me just clarify something here. Justification is found in JTB. This is related to knowledge. So if someone asks you to justify a proposition you believe, you should, if something you claim to know, like if you claim to know that reality exists, you should be able to give your justifications for it.
Yeah.
Your justifications can be because I feel like it does. That's a justification. There is no escaping justification in the way our cognition works. There just is no escape. So for every single thing we believe, every single thing we claim to know, there's going to be some justification baked into that system. So if someone says, well, I don't think reality, or they say, I know reality doesn't need gods or a god to be here. Someone rightfully can ask, well, what's your justification for knowing that? Well, it seems to me that there's nothing logically contradictory that when I look at like an infinite state of potential, which is a possible answer, I would say it's plausible that whatever is at the most fundamental grounding of reality would satisfy those three things. But
I think I would probably say, Trey, do you like go through your day, like as if reality exists, as if the universe
I
exists? Like,
100% agree that the universe exists, Robin.
like I mean, I would question their sincerity first of all of trying to say that the universe doesn't exist, and I'd like for them to show me how that they participate in their life without assuming that the universe exists. Like,
but
you know, I mean,
but Robin, you can also give your justifications as to why
yes,
they should
I can
believe it
drag out.
exists.
Yeah, I can drag out some, data or whatever, and like, and like I think, like I don't think that, like solipsism. I don't think I'm a brain in that. I think that I interact with people, and but like I think when people are trying to claim that stuff like the universe don't exist and stuff like that, I don't really see them as actually honestly holding that position. And it's maybe a thought trying to just be a thought stopping process, and so yeah.
I
I
might
would
have missed it.
question that, the sincerity of that right there.
What was the answer to what's to stop someone from arguing that God just is a brute fact? And by the way, they could also say, "Well, I just feel it," and that's
Yep.
their justification.
Yeah,
But
if they say, and then we can argue about the justifications, right?
Yeah.
yeah, but what's to stop the brute fact?
Well, well, if they say, I believe it's a brute fact, and then I say, what's your justification for that? So then they say, oh, because I feel it. Well, couldn't your feelings
You don't need
be couldn't your feelings be wrong about this, like
Yeah.
epistemically? And then that's
Don't
why
need-
our sentiments. This is why I argue epistemically, even though our epistemic standards are value sorted and born of our sentiments fundamentally, there are epistemic standards that give rise to much more reliable standards than other standards. So just simply saying, my wife cheated on me. Well, why do you think that? Because I feel it. And then that's like their only justification seems reckless, right? So I would say, using empiricism, correspondence criteria of truth, these kinds of things, using empiricism, using science as a way of knowing, what would these things have to say about this person just saying, well, my reason for believing God is the brute fact is just feelings. By my standards of epistemology, I'm going to be able to pick that apart, pretty easily.
Yeah.
But y'all keep going back to justifying it. Like, I'm just
Yep.
telling you right now what Sean Carroll said. Like, if you ask him, why does the universe exist? He says the universe just is. Or I'm saying what he might say. The universe just is.
I understand. I understand the brute fact point that Sean Carroll's making.
Well, but he has knowledge, like he has physics knowledge that I don't hold. Like I think that Sean Carroll comes from a position of that the universe has to exist in some state or another, right? Like I mean, most of those, from my understanding, most of the people in physics don't think that it could not exist. They think that this is just something that in some one state or another, whatever the state of affairs of the universe is, that it has to exist. It's just like
I don't know about that. Like there will be some that believe that, but if you ask Sean Carroll to place his best bets as to what is fundamental in reality, then he can place his best bets. He's probably just not willing to commit those bets to knowledge. But for someone like me, I'm fine committing to knowledge that at the most fundamental layer, and this would apply to a God as well, it would have to be an infinite state of potential. So God would meet that those requirements as being, infinite state of potential. If it was actually a God that solves the logical problems that need to be solved. I just don't see any good reason to add in that bet any kinds of qualities of being or an entity or an agent or anything like that. But I understand why people think it necessarily has to have these additional traits, because it gets anthropomorphized. We anthropomorphize onto that logical necessity, which I don't think there's no good reason for us to do that. Like, we can just say, no, if it is a God, and to satisfy the logical issues, infinite state of potential, easy.
yeah, that's where you get into the people, like there's where you separate the deistic and the theistic sort of, and like a deistic God, the possibility. But the thing about it is if it doesn't interact with reality in any way, why would I care if it exists, for one thing, and how it's unfalsifiable? So why would I ever consider it in my
curiosity, right? I think you would care for reasons of curiosity, Robin.
Yeah, but you can't falsify it. Like if it doesn't.
Oh, are you
if it
saying it's?
doesn't-
Are you saying it's unfalsifiable?
a deistic God?
Yeah, a deistic God doesn't have to be unfalsifiable.
Well, how do we like? I've always held it like a deistic God does not interact with reality, and
Yeah, that doesn't mean
so
we can't surprise it, right?
well, maybe I guess if
And
we
knock on
like
its door.
if we travel deep enough into space one day and pick up the right
Yeah.
rock, and
I mean, we're
hiding under
talking.
that rock,
Yeah, we're
you
talking
know,
we're talking about gods here, so we're in that supernat or sci-fi realm anyway. Sorry, Trey.
I don't, but like I don't, yeah, because I don't really hold the possibility anyway, because I think that every example of gods that I'm aware of, like
Oh, but
all
wait,
the other gods, except
please
for the
don't
ones
commit.
you,
Did you just
well,
say
like,
you don't hold to? Wait, hang on. Robin, you agree that it's possible that gods exist?
yeah, possible, yeah,
Okay,
well, I
okay,
should say plausible.
okay.
Okay, but like every other example of, and like Trey, I would say that every other god except for the one he believes in, he is fairly certain that they were just man-made creations, like, or you may not hold that position, Trey, I don't know, but most Christians do, that they believe in the Christian God, but they don't think that any of the other gods are real. Yet some people do hold the position that there are other kinds of beings, but like they're still not gods, I guess. But um and so, like, I think, we have many examples of all these different gods that have been asserted by mankind, that people, don't believe in, but they believe in their one. Like, they think that's the one that exists. And so I just like, and I don't see a difference in the Christian God as compared to I don't see any more evidence for one particular. I've always kind of joked and said, if you believe in one God, you should believe in all of them, because they all have about the same evidence. Is what I've always told people. I mean, that's kind of a joke, but
Yeah,
like, I think
but I
that
think it.
all as well supported as the other one.
I think it matters. I think it matters what the individual's justification is for believing, though, because many people are going to believe because they had a personal experience with one particular God, right?
Yeah. But if you were like if you wanted to say that you came to believe in God through evidence,
Yeah, by way of well, yeah, okay. Yeah, evidence is a weird one, right? Because we're going to get crossover with, personal experience is evidence, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about
That's
like
what
something about the Bible, or the Shroud of
Yeah,
Turin,
you're talking about a specific kind of evidence, like literary evidence. There's a lot of literary evidence for all kinds of gods. Yeah, so, hey, Dragon, what's shaking?
So,
Welcome
How's
back.
it going?
Good, welcome back.
Thank you.
Hey, this is exciting. We have 3, maybe 4 theists in the room. I mean,
we had
a couple,
Brody while ago too.
a couple more. You guys would be just like dominating the atheists.
We might get the majority
like
here.
We had Brody.
I would love it. I would love it. By the way, any theists like Trey, Dragon, William, if you guys have any other theist friends that like to have conversations, it would be great to have them. But
you know what, Travis? I got something on that actually.
Okay.
I invite people, but they say, why would I want to talk to people that think I'm foolish?
Oh yeah. Well,
Travis.
No, let me tell you. You can clarify to them and be like, I know this guy, Travis Pangburn. He does say that he thinks particular ideas are foolish, but let me add to that if someone was in the room and said to me, can you please not call my idea foolish because it makes me feel bad? I want to talk to them. I don't want to hurt their feelings. So yeah, I'm going to adhere to that. I would find that a completely acceptable request.
Or you might hear a fool says, what does the scripture say? A fool says in his heart that God does not exist, or
There is no
No,
God yet.
don't even start, Robin, because I read a scripture recently that Jesus said, I think it was a Sermon on the Mount, that if you call your brother a fool, you're going to hell. So watch out.
oh, I'm not
That is
really sure
exactly
that.
why the reason why Trey just pointed that out. That's exactly why I call the argument foolish. I'm hedging my bets. I'm
I
Pascal
don't have a brother
wagering.
either. No brothers. I have no
Well,
brothers.
we
Isn't
are
that right,
all
Dragon?
we are all your brothers, right?
I know, but like,
Isn't
yeah,
that
that's
right,
a
Dragon?
terrible reason to go to hell, though. Like, that's a
Didn't,
horrible reason to send somebody to hell.
isn't
Like,
didn't he say that on the I didn't finish reading the Sermon on the Mount. I'm sure he
Oh,
rounds it out by what am I, redemption of sins. I'm blanking on the word, but doesn't he say that?
yeah.
I'm not. I have I have memorized some of the worst passages of the Bible. Like I don't even know the scriptures, just the verses. But like I've never read the Bible all the way through, actually. Which makes no sense because if I believed in a God, you would think that if you believed in a God, really, actually, and you believed that this God left us a book, the creator of the universe, I, I never did. I thought about it later on. I thought, why wouldn't I have read that? Like,
Number
if I
one selling book.
like, that should be the most important book in the world. Like, if God actually, like,
It
had
is the
it
number
written.
one selling book.
Yeah, well, yeah,
It's a number
but
one
like,
bestseller.
It
there's
is.
a whole lot of people though that haven't read it too. Like I have like 5 copies in my house, and I still haven't read the whole thing. And I would say that like a majority of Christians have not read the entire thing.
Well,
Yep.
but they're called to do a natural reading of scripture. It doesn't say you have to read all of the scripture. So long as you are performing a natural reading, which is an interesting topic, by the way.
But there are some that know every word just about in it.
Holy,
Like
yeah, and also the people who can recite. I think originally you told me that, Robin, about the people who can recite the Quran, every word.
oh yeah,
Oh yeah, and
yes,
I looked that up, and they have like competitions on that, and they have like challenges where they challenge these people, and like that's wild, very
yeah.
That's
impressive.
impressive.
Yeah,
Muslims. Yeah, he told me. Muslim told me that that's something that they do, that they learn to recite it.
right.
The old Hebrews did as well. That was common for them, from childhood to work on memorizing the Torah.
Well, because it was
Um,
mostly oral history. Like much of the Torah was oral history until later on. Like it was handed down through oral history. Like the New Testament, came about pretty much after writing and stuff. But some of the stories, like the story of Job and things like that, right there, are some of the oldest, supposedly some of the oldest stories in the Bible, and they were passed down for probably quite some time before they were
well,
written.
there was writing because Moses wrote the Torah, the first 5 books,
Did he
but a
write
lot
the
of it
part?
was passed along orally.
Did Moses write about the book where he talks about his own death?
Probably not.
Okay,
Um, I'm saying the first 5 books.
I know, but that's in the first 5 books. Moses' death is in the.
Exodus,
Mhm.
yeah, most of them. Then you're good catch. But a lot of it was, passed around orally. But there was writing. Talking about what he was saying a minute ago about the hellfire thing. So the context here, and this is from Matthew chapter 22. He's saying, "Do not think that I've come to abolish the law."
just the show's still running. I just heard a bunch of people asking for that.
You don't have to follow the law.
I mean, I can find you something. Yeah, sure.
Let me my
right,
Discord
go ahead.
app is
Not that you
go
don't
ahead.
have to follow the law. Not that you don't have to follow the law.
Hey,
but
Robbie,
that
guys, can we let Dragon say something really quick about what he was going to say about the
Yeah.
overall topic? You guys can jump right back in.
No, that's what I was telling him to go ahead and do his
Yeah,
question.
yeah. It's all good. I'm just being rodeo guy.
Cool. Appreciate it, guys. So yeah, kind of, I think I would say on Does God Exist? That most people believe that there is something spiritual. And, that kind of raises the question, well, if there is something spiritual, because people have spiritual experiences, whether that's on psychedelics or just in life, seeing weird things, or what they feel inside of them that is something beyond tangible, beyond the physical, then that's kind of evidence right there that there's something more than just the physical. Now, I know not everyone's going to agree with that, but talking about what I would say is evidence for God. And then this sounds like some of this stuff has been brought up. Like, okay, if there's a God, then would he try to talk to his creation? And then we see the Bible being an account of that. There are other books as well. And there was a question about, other gods other than the Hebrew God. And that is addressed by Yahweh. He actually, acknowledges that there are other gods, although he is the chief supreme ruler, the chief god. And he talks about how these other gods are being worshipped and how they're leading men astray and how they are at war with him. And we see chaos in this world, and the Bible does a good job of explaining that, why that happens, the spiritual warfare, and, man, sin is, falling from the mark, what we are made to be the image of God, so we are made to be holy. We're not very good at that. So there are stuff that happens, because of us and then this world in general. And, there are also, anecdotal experiences, and I think I understand that people don't take people's experiences for, absolute truth, but I think when you take the collection of things, I think it does mean something. Like, I shared the other day, God saved my life in a car crash where I heard him tell me that he has me and I should be dead, but I'm not. There's also a time that he saved me from a tornado, and there were bad storms coming through, and I had uh, prayed that there would be no strong wind that would prevail against the house, that no trees would fall on our property, um, that no one would die as well.
Can I ask
There are
you
a
a
couple of
question?
things.
Can I ask you a
Yes,
question about that?
go ahead.
Do you think that like people who have died in tornadoes, do you think that some of them died praying for God to save them?
Perhaps. Let me finish my story real quick, though, because there's something interesting that kind of aligns with that in a way. Um, so I had prayed all these specific things, and there actually came a time where there's a white wall of water horizontally outside the sliding glass door of my room, and it came to the point where I could feel my room like twisting, and I tried to force myself to stay in my room as long as I could, which I did. But there came a point, well, even at the point that I heard a giant crack, which there was a tree that my dad, a very experienced tree person, was too scared to try to cut down because the way that it was would have come right on my room. And I heard the thud and stuff, and eventually I was like, I'm sorry, Lord, like I have faith, but I gotta go downstairs a little bit and chill out. And so I did, but I went back upstairs, and eventually the storm started to dissipate a little bit. And in the morning, there was a lot of light in the window that isn't usually there. Um, so I went outside, and I'm condensing this story a lot, but there were three fallen trees. And that one that had fallen, instead of coming down on me, had gone my dad said that that tree was picked up and twisted and then laid flat on its side. And you could see 3 trees leading up to where my room was. But the thing is that my parents live on a lake, and it's Army Corps of Engineer property that those trees had fallen on, not our property. And right past my room, because I had also prayed that no strong wind would prevail against the house, there was a loose gutter barely hanging on. That was loose before the storm, and it was somehow still there, and it didn't fall off till like 7 months or more later. And then there were the tops of 2 trees that were broken off to where that storm was picked up over and around my room, like just barely, but enough. And then there was, you know, just some other things that just proved how strong the winds were. There was just craziness. And the one thing though is that I'd heard that there was one guy who did die, and that kind of bothered me for a while. I was like, man, like how can I? God did protect me and everything, but there, all these things. It was like he had answered my prayers, and it almost seemed like he didn't, but he actually did because trees were on our property, etc. And then one time I was sharing this story, and the Lord told me about the man who had died, that he was taking him home, and that's why he had died. And then I was like, okay, well, the Lord has the right to do what he does. But then several months later, I was telling the story again, and there was a guy who worked security. The guy who had died was a security guy at a plant, and this guy knew of him and said, "Oh yeah, no, I know that guy, and he had died of a heart attack. It wasn't from the storm." So there's things like this, and also near death experiences where people have seen their loved ones, have these experiences of being with Christ in heaven. There's Muslims, a lot of Muslims who have started to have dreams of Christ appearing to them. And then there's also so much archaeological evidence. They found Sodom and Gomorrah, other things like that. They
Um,
found the Egyptians talking about Joseph. And
um,
uh,
I want to interrupt you for a minute. Like
okay,
I disagree with that. They've not found Sodom and Gomorrah. I don't. That's not a.
that's fine. You don't have to agree.
I
I'm
mean,
just
like,
saying that there are archaeological things,
well, I mean, like
which
what?
is my argument for why
I
God
know,
exists.
but like
Um,
I'm just saying you're making assertions that I know to be false. So
well,
like,
you don't have to agree. I'm just saying what my argument is.
Hmm.
well, I
And we
mean,
don't have to align. That's
like I can't.
okay.
I won't argue with your experience. That like when you are making like assertions that I know to be incorrect, I'm going to have to push back because like that's something that like I don't want. That's not
In
true.
general, just for the etiquette here, Dragon, most times on the live, we all push back against each other. And so absolutely it's fine to share personal experience. I do all the time, but we will get pushback, you know what I mean? So it's just
Yeah,
the
I won't
nature of
push
how
back against your experience, except for like
Mm.
the question I asked by go. But I do kind of know a little bit about the archaeological findings that we have for the Bible. I have several books right now that are like academic books on the archaeological Hebrew findings, and like we don't have a Sodom and Gomorrah site at all.
Well,
They
so not all these scholars do agree. However, they did find like these sulfur balls, and it's in the right area. Different things like that. Yeah,
Yes.
there is there is other archaeological evidence as well. I saw one time they had found a coin from King David's era, and then
Yeah.
there is all
Yeah.
the
King David is probably King David was probably a real person. The Bible kind of exaggerates the size of his kingdom, but yes, I think that it's pretty much agreed by most scholars that King David did exist. Yes.
And then just to wrap up, I mean, I would say there's also, overwhelming evidence that Christ was real. The Romans talked about him, and And it's often brought up that there is more evidence for Christ's life than there is Alexander the Great, which is a common thing brought up. And I was looking into that a minute ago, and most of the biographical stuff for Alexander the Great is like 300 to 400 years after his death. And with
Um,
Christ, it's like within the first generation, like thousands of manuscripts. And then
I see. I
and
don't agree with any of that. Like, I don't agree with any of that. Like,
uh-huh.
we have
But
no contemporary first-hand accounts of Jesus
He
of
didn't say that.
anybody.
He didn't say that.
He said within just like what he said.
within the first generation,
Yeah.
which is like, a lot of it's like, written 30, 60 years after his death, that kind of thing.
About people who, I
And
mean,
and some of that is by disciples like Matthew and John.
like the Gospels were not. They were anonymous. They were signed anonymous. Church tradition actually is who gave them the names of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. In those, the authors are unknown who wrote them. That is, I mean, like, that's even Christian scholars. I mean, like, that's actually some Bibles even say that. And like when you open the New Testament, the very first page of the New Testament, it will say in there that the Gospels were anonymous and that they were by tradition. They were given the names of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Robin, the point he's making, I think, is that the 4 books, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, were written within 100 years of Christ's death. And what he said is that Alexander the Great's latest, or his most recent, or his first, I should say, his first biography was written like 300 years later or something like that. Is that right, Dragon?
Yeah.
I've heard these arguments, and I disagree with them. I think
they're not arguments. They're not arguments. They're just facts.
Well, they're not. It's not a fact, though. Like, okay, that there are like external, like every bit of the writings that we have for Jesus, that are supposed to be like the Gospels and stuff, are found within the Bible. They're not external sources.
All I said was that they were written within 100 years of Jesus' lifetime. Is that, you do not agree with that?
We don't.
That is not a fact.
We don't know who wrote them, and like
I'm not saying who wrote them.
I know, but like,
just follow you got to follow the words. Trey, can you make the claim again?
Okay, scholars believe that the first 4 books, were written within 100 years of Jesus' death. Fact. Yes or no?
Supposedly, Mark was written around 7 AD to 100 AD.
Yeah, not all 4 of them. No, but like 3 of them. Like 3 of them are copied straight from the other ones. They're like word for word copied.
Okay, even if it's 100 years or 130 years or 150 years, they're still much sooner than Alexander's, which is like 300 or 400 years.
That's the main point, and I would say that there's a lot of evidence that attaches them to the disciples, but it's fine if you disagree with me on that. But
I follow what the scholars like. I don't ever study biblical writings except for what the scholars say. So
yeah, there's always, not all scholars agree on everything, though. I mean, that's the thing. Like,
well, there's
you
a
can
consensus.
choose which scholars to agree with or not.
There's a consensus.
And consensus is, well, that depends on what field and what angle you would go from. Like, and consensus is like, it does add weight, but I would say consensus does not mean that it's true either. The whole thing with the whole world was against Galileo, as a common example, and there are people today who believe that what's his face didn't actually discover gravity. So things like that. I mean,
Okay,
but
I looked up this contemporary evidence for Alexander the Great. We have the Babylonian astronomical
yeah,
diaries.
can I finish real quick? I'm almost done.
Okay, I know, but okay, but
I'm really almost done.
Are you going to start some more things that are like?
I mean, you can say whether you believe the stuff I say is right or not. You know, after I'm done, that's fine. It's just really hard for me to finish
Okay,
saying.
all right,
Yeah,
finish.
okay.
Sorry.
Thank you. But one of the things that they do say is that there's less physical evidence because they have like, you know, the coin for Alexander the Great and stuff like that. However, there is the Shroud of Turin, I think, is a like physical example of they didn't know the image of Christ was there for many years until they did a certain kind of scan. And I don't know if I believe all the things that Catholics claim, but Catholics claim to have pieces of the cross and different things like that. So it is, you know, consensus, you know, amongst the scholars that there is more evidence for Christ, including, you know, official Roman documents, and stuff like that. So I would just say that there's a lot of evidence, you know, if we are, you know, assuming that there is something spiritual, something, you know, more than this physical realm, and if we believe that, you know, creation, maybe there's something more to that. So if we're assuming that there could be a God, well, you know, and then the God would talk to people. Well, there's a lot of evidence for the God of the Bible. Essentially, is, you know, what I'm trying to say in a nutshell. I
Okay.
will be right back. My app Discord's messing with me, and whenever I come back in, I'll finally be able to see you guys again. I'll be right back.
All right.
All right.
Robin, what were you saying about the evidence?
For Alexander the Great,
Well, okay, actually, I don't think any of this matters unless you think that Jesus was not a real person.
I actually accept that a man named Jesus probably did exist. I'm not 100% sure of that.
Yeah.
I think that that he is over representing the actual evidence. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay with saying that a man, a Jewish rabbi, um, was preaching like the end of the coming of the kingdom of God or whatever at that time. That was pretty much a common thing that was going on at that time while they were Roman occupation was going on, and they were waiting for the Messiah. I mean, that's what the prophecies were about, the Messiah who was supposed to come and lead them in battle against the Romans and defeat the Romans and cast them out, and so that God could set up his kingdom there, for the Jews and everything. So yes, so yeah,
He was crucified.
I'm fine with saying that. That
Do you
doesn't.
think he was crucified?
I think that that's probably very possible that if he was arrested for doing, like preaching, I don't think that he was probably arrested for preaching about. I think that he probably was violating Jewish law if he was preaching some of the things that they say he was preaching, or
I
if
can explain that.
if he attempted to cause some sort of disturbance, like because they were wanting like someone to rally around to fight the Romans. So if he would have went in there and had caused like some sort of like where he was causing people to like get stirred up against the Romans, yes, the Romans would have executed him because they did not they smashed down rebellions like that. I think that if he was crucified, that was a common practice in Rome. I do not think that he would have been taken off the cross. I think that that was part of what the Romans considered the punishment for traitors that they used. They left them on the cross to be eaten by scavenging birds and stuff. So he would have been pulled down off of the cross probably 2 or 3 days later after the birds had eaten on his body, and he would have been cast into a mass grave.
Okay. I just have one question.
Yes.
You think that? Sorry, pre-question. Do you think that that's the most likely scenario, that they left his body up there?
Yes, I think that would have been. I think that that was pretty much that was part of what the Romans saw as part of the punishment. It wasn't just the crucifixion, because and especially with the Jewish people who were so now there is a possibility that if
No,
someone
just what's most likely? Is that the most likely, that he got eaten on the cross and stayed up there?
well, I don't know what like there is a possibility because the Jews like to bury their dead on the day they die. That would have been the only reason why he would have been allowed to been taken down from the cross, and that would have been just to appease them.
So what's most likely?
It depends on it. It depends on like who was actually responsible for Jesus dying. If he was crucified because he was like because the Jewish people saw him as like heresy or something like that, then they might would have allowed his body to be taken down. If the Romans crucified him for causing a rebellion, an uprising, the Romans would never have allowed him to be pulled off the cross, I don't think.
Well,
I can
they
share a couple things real quick. After you go ahead and talk.
Yeah, I'm just going to try to make one more point. So if two scenarios, from my understanding, he was crucified because there was an uprising, and the Romans did it to kind of squash the uprising, to or let's say to cool things down. So what's the most likely scenario then? Was his body left on the cross?
We get the story in the Bible.
Okay, so that's
which
my
was
understanding.
written like
So
years
what's most
after.
likely? What's most likely?
See, that's what I mean. We don't really have any other account. There is no there is no actual Roman record of this, and the earliest that Jesus is mentioned in the Roman records is like Josephus and stuff like that. And is it Tacitus?
Tacitus. All right. So this is my last question, and then Dragon can come in. If let's just say that he was left up there to die and get eaten by the crows or whatever, then why would the gospel have spread at all?
I can like people believe this. Like people were like these people were being occupied by Rome. They had been being occupied by Rome. They had went through they'd also like the Babylonian, they had been taken away from home during the exile. They had I mean, the Jewish people had faced a lot of controversy and adversity, and they were feeling like they really thought that they were Yahweh's chosen people, and they were expecting God to come in and correct these wrongs, and this was a major thing. I mean, Jesus believed this. I mean, like if you think about what he said, some of y'all will not taste death before I return. Like, so in his mind, this was going to happen before the people that were listening to him talk died. So, like, he was expecting this at any time. He told people not to get married, not to have children. Like, it was like, don't get married, don't have children. Sell all your belongings and follow me.
That was Paul who had said that Paul thought that it was better for men to stay single.
I mean, like they all
Paul
were.
said that wasn't from the
Paul
Lord.
was a Jew, so he was expecting this Messiah too. Like he was a Jew, I mean, even though he was at one time persecuting some of the Jews for the Romans or whatever, he probably had a lot of guilt over doing that, I think. But he never knew Jesus. And so like the fact that he changes, like Trey, did you ever find the passage where Jesus says that you don't have to follow the law?
Oh, I just thought that meant like just the Bible. But let me tell you something else. So I put Romans 5, but Jesus didn't say that. That was Paul. But I mean, you could also make an argument that Jesus said it in the Sermon on the Mount when he says that he fulfilled the law, and then you can logically make an argument that the law has been fulfilled, so we don't have to abide by Jewish law anymore. But anyway,
Read the whole
I was going to
passage. Can
the
you read
other
the whole
thing.
passage?
The Sermon on the Mount is Matthew
No,
5.
you don't have to read the whole Sermon on the Mount. Read me the whole passage about what he says about fulfilling the law.
Can I
Oh,
share a couple
can you do it, Dragon?
things real quick from earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can pull that back up here in a second.
Well, he said, I did not come to abolish the law, I come to fulfill it. Is what he said.
Right. Yeah. So a couple things from earlier. So the Pharisees, who Christ had previously said were synagogue of Satan because they weren't truly following the Lord, wanted to kill Christ because there wasn't a rebellion, but they viewed it as it was a spiritual rebellion. People who were following Christ and that were being freed from this religiosity. And what they said that Christ had broken the law because he proclaimed himself to be God, which
Yes.
is against the Hebrew law, unless you are God. So
Yes.
if Jesus
you
was
know-
God, then
do you
he
know why
wasn't breaking the law.
Jesus
But
was
that's what that claim was.
Do you know why
What's up?
Jesus? Do you know what Jesus was actually like complaint saying about the Pharisees for what they were doing that he would disagree with?
Oh well, it was a lot of you know how people today complain about hypocrisy in the church and all.
Mhm. Yeah,
Uh,
but do you know the
Christ
specific?
was calling that out.
Yeah, do you know what the
But yeah,
specific,
he was.
specific thing that they were doing?
I'm trying to. Yeah, I'm trying to share. It was things like that where they were mad that he had healed someone on the Sabbath, and Christ was like, who of you, if you have a mule that falls in a well, are you going to wait a day and leave that mule there to suffer? And he's saying,
Actually, the Jewish law
we're-
allows law allows for the protection of life on the Sabbath. That's in Jewish law.
right, yeah,
But the
right,
reason
and
why
that's what
the thing that Jesus specifically was talking the Pharisees is that he talks to them about like going with tradition of man instead of following God's law, because he says that the Pharisees were allowing the parents of unruly children to use a loophole to get around stoning their children, because Moses' law requires that if you have an unruly child, you are to take him to the town gates, the city gates, and the elders, and they are to stone him to death. And Jesus is getting on to the Pharisees for not following this law by allowing a loophole that they have made to where they were taking money from parents who wanted to protect their children, wanted to keep their children alive, and so they were not having their children stoned at the city gates as the law of Moses required.
I'm not familiar with that. Where's that found at?
I'll find it for you. I'm like the
But
passages. I'm really bad about knowing the numbers of the passages, but I know the verses like what they are. I'll find it for you.
okay. But there was a lot of things. Like he said that they were like whitewashed tombs where, where people were buried, they would, if it were today, they would use like a pressure washer to make it all, the white limestone to look nice and all that, he said. But on the inside, you're rotting corpses. And he calls them out for not having the faith of Abraham. So they are following this religion, and they are also like expelling people who were, truly seeking the Lord. And like the people who were ill, they had, pushed out into the place of sacrifice, which is where they would keep the animals to be sacrificed. And that's where the angel would come and stir up the pool, so whoever came in the pool could be healed And that's where Christ came to the one man who had been there for years and told him, take up your mat. And then he could get up and walk. So it was, Christ was like, you don't have the heart of the Lord. The whole thing was, all the law is about loving the Lord with all that you have, and about loving your neighbor as yourself. He said, essentially, you don't have love, and he was calling them out to be narcissists, essentially, and that's why they had beef with him. So they many times had sent their experts in the law to try to trap him in something or try to catch him breaking the law or being wrong somewhere. So then the only thing that they could find to accuse him of was claiming to be God. So they said he had broken the law because of that.
Matthew 23. Let's see. Matthew 23:3 is part of it. Primary hypocrisy. He tells the crowds to do what the leaders say, but not what they do, as their deeds do not conform to their teachings. They are missing the heart of the law. That they're not following the heart of the law, but just like the spirit of the law. He condemns them for rigorously tithing exact spices like mint, but blatantly ignoring faithfulness to the law, man-made traditions, while setting aside the actual commandments of God. And I can't remember. Like if you read the whole that passage though in context with it, he's specifically talking about that they are replacing God's commands with sort of their man-made traditions that they've started.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. One of the other things too, you're talking about Matthew 16, where he is talking about some of you will not die until you see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. See, where's that exact verse at? There it is. So this was, this was before he had died on the cross. So he was foretelling that, here he's telling in Matthew 16, starting verse 24, he's talking about, if anyone will come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross and follow me. And so he's saying, essentially about his kingdom, the Son of Man coming in his kingdom, was that revolution on the cross of conquering death, and him returning again after his death.
Do you think Jesus thought he was going to die, be crucified?
Oh yeah, absolutely. In the Garden of Gethsemane, I have trouble saying it sometimes, but he had so much stress. This is an actual medical condition, which happens with just crazy stress. Because I think sometimes about how stressful my life is. I'm like, well, I have not started to bleed from my body because I'm so stressed out yet. And Christ had started to bleed from his body because he was so stressed. And he kept asking his disciples to stay awake and pray with him, but they kept falling asleep. They didn't understand how important he was, because then he was asking the Father, if there's a way that this cup can be taken from me without having to go through this torture and torturous death, then he's saying, well, I would like that, but nonetheless, your will be done. Like, if there is no other way, I will do this for the sake of humanity. So he absolutely knew what was coming, and there's so much prophecy talking about it, from the Old Testament as well.
So why do you think when he was on the cross, he said, "Wherefore, why have you forsaken me, Father?" Why did he cry?
That was a quote. That was a quote from.
I mean, I'm doing an internal critique. Like, I don't trust much of what the Bible says, but like according to the words that are in the Bible, he doesn't he doesn't seem to think that he's going to be killed. I mean, like he he says, why have you forsaken me?
Did he freeze up?
I don't know. I'm looking through my notes here.
Okay.
I actually have
Robin, I would say
cheat.
that he did know that he would be killed. And then I would also say this is something that y'all meaning atheists, are gonna have to contend with in the future. This is something that Frank Turek has said before, which he's a very renowned
I know Frank.
apologist.
Yeah,
He has said that the Bible doesn't even have to be it doesn't even have to exist for Christianity to be true. I don't know how you feel about that, Dragon, but so that's something that y'all are gonna have to.
What does he think is the evidence?
Jesus Christ died for our sins and resurrected.
I mean, just because you believe that on faith?
That is what Christianity is. I think once you boil it down to the bare bones, a Christian believes that Jesus Christ died for their sins and resurrected.
I mean, I think that I think that that's really poor. That's really poor evidence that just to try to say just to not even have the if the Bible
show me his
Bible
body
could be confirmed as being written at a contemporary time, and like the authors could be confirmed, I can see where that would lend to the credence of this story.
No, I don't think that would be enough evidence for some people. I think it's just
well, I mean, I don't know.
his body.
It doesn't seem like well, I mean, like his body's not going to be around. If he is God, he's gone. But like the empty tomb is not evidence that Jesus was ever in there. We don't even have a tomb.
I think it's on the internet that
there's three tombs
they know where the
in
tomb.
Jerusalem there are three tombs that advertise to be the tomb that Jesus was placed in. None of them.
I think they don't know exactly which one, or there's an argument, but like they are pretty sure at the least they know which tomb he was in because they were owned by Joseph of Arimathea. So I believe they've traced where the tombs that he owned
they can find
were.
him. I don't even think they can find Joseph of Arimathea. Like I don't think they can find out even who he is. But like you mentioned the shroud, Wago, and I'm like to be really like to help you out. The shroud is not any kind of it's a 13th century Catholic a thing. They had they had at that time there were a lot of forgeries of sacred items, and it's been carbon dated, the materials, and even if the shroud, even if you had a person that was laying flat on his back and you laid a piece of material over him, it's not even possible that the facial representation of the on the shroud would actually look like that.
You know what I find interesting
with the shroud? Can I share real quick about the shroud?
Yeah,
thanks, brother. So there was some carbon dating on some segments of the shroud, which did originate to around that time period. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it probably was 13th century or whatever. And that's where there were stitched repairs that some of the nuns had made. The rest of the shroud is older, and I don't remember what kind of scan they did, but scientists, and it's been independently tested by non-Christians, but they said that there was a brilliant flash of light that had imprinted that image onto the shroud, which is why it is in that 3D kind of thing. Because you're right, normally, that wouldn't happen. There wouldn't be an image at all, but to get all the details. So they're saying there was this giant flash of light that, imprinted it onto the shroud. But we didn't know that was there until I don't know when, but like recent years, because they did some type of scan and saw it. So there was this, this story that this was the shroud that Christ was buried in, and they found blood on it as well. And reportedly, they had tested the blood and found that there was no
Oh, we had
chromosome that had
23
come from
chromosomes, right?
Joseph.
Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah,
23.
there was no chromosome from Joseph, which they are like, well, that's apparent evidence that he didn't have a earthly human father, because the scientist who tested it was a Hebrew guy, and when he tested it, he was like, whose blood is this? Because he couldn't believe that the chromosome wasn't there. And then the guy was like, that's the blood of your savior.
Do you follow Ron Wyatt?
I know who he is, yeah. Mhm.
I would advise you to like check his like any claims that you
I know he's controversial, but
he's
there's
not
like,
controversial. I mean, like it's not just controversial. He's like I would make sure I checked into any of the claims that I pulled from him.
oh no, I have, yeah,
Okay.
and there's like stuff, apart from him, other people who have like examined the shroud, etc.
I mean, I'm willing to like. I just want y'all to know, I'm willing to accept anything that is like verifiable evidence. I'm not going to be dishonest about what we actually can verify and what we can't. Like that. Like I don't. I'm not. It's not my intention to be dishonest about the evidence, but then like the things that I know are patently not substantiated, I just have to push back against. And like this is something that I spend probably a great amount of time listening to and following people who make these arguments and stuff. So like I'm kind of in the middle of this a lot. So
Yeah, you have a natural skepticism, and that's okay. It is a big thing about the existence of God, and that's
but
something that I've dedicated my life to examining myself. And
the
I
existence of
would
God is
say,
separate from the Jesus claim, I think. Like
sure, I would say that there are people though, because you're never going to have consensus from uh, people outside of Christianity to have complete consensus with scholars within Christianity, because while you strive to be open-minded and to examine things, there just simply are going, and it's in other fields as well, there just simply are going to be people that no matter what evidence they see, they're going to contradict it, and people who have a pre-made opinion are going to see evidence and dismiss it, or they're going to latch on to certain stuff and claim that's true, and it's part of human nature as well. So it's
do you
there's going
like
to be
think
scholars who say the opposite sometimes.
like going by scholars? Do you think that scholars who are not Christian, because most of them probably were Christian when they went into this field, like, so do you think that they are inherently dishonest about this situation? Because I think that Bart Ehrman, I think that Bart Ehrman is probably like he is very. I think he's probably very honest about what we know and what we don't know. Like and he actually is one of the people that is almost certain that Jesus actually existed. Like he doesn't even like the mythicist, he just freaks out if you even mention mythicism. So like he is certain that Jesus existed, and I think that he's maybe a little more certain than what he should be. But I follow Bart, so that's why I accept that Jesus existed, because I think that Bart is a well-established scholar on this, but he's not a Christian. Um, I think that he's honest about what we know and what we don't know. A lot of where I see though, the scholars who disagree with the consensus within this field often are Christian scholars, and they're not the consensus. They are in a minority at most time, and they have motivated reasoning. I mean, like they have a motivation to, and they don't seem to have like all of the Christian scholars even to agree with them on certain parts of things.
I think Bart
Yeah.
Ehrman, not to
So-
interrupt, but I think Bart Ehrman dates the Book of Mark to 74 CE, by the way.
Yeah.
That would be less than 50 years after his death, because Jesus died in 33.
40, yeah. 40 years, something like that. Yeah, but just that
So-
one gospel, and then one of them was like was maybe as late as the 3rd century, or I can't remember exactly the dates on them. I have to look them up every time, but we don't know who wrote them though. They're anonymous.
So I don't believe that. I mean, obviously not everyone is being dishonest, whether they know what the actual truth is or not. I believe that there are scholars on both sides who are genuinely trying to find and show the truth. But I do absolutely believe that there are people who are actively trying to work against the kingdom of Christ, and that's evidence from them killing him. That goes all the way back to the Pharisees. Well, really, it goes all the way back to the very beginning. You know, there was King Herod, who, when he heard the Messiah of Israel was coming, which King Herod was actually an Edomite, which is he was a descendant of Esau, the brother of Jacob slash Israel. So when he heard the Savior of Israel was coming, that's why he ordered the killing of all the infant males, all the toddler males. So there is, you know, what I would call the occult, which goes back to there being gods that are working against the God of the Bible. There's definitely people actively working against the kingdom.
Okay.
But I would just real quick, but there have been people who have set out to prove Christianity false, who came to find overwhelming evidence and faith in favor of Christ being real. Notably, C.S. Lewis is a famous example.
Yeah, Herod the Great died in 4 BC, which was almost 30 years before Jesus was crucified. His son Herod Antipas was the ruler at the time of Jesus, but Herod the Great is the one that is mentioned in let's see, Herod Antipas is the specific ruler mentioned in the New Testament who interrogated Jesus. Okay, wait a minute.
Yeah, there's 3 Herods, and there is some argument about when Christ was actually born. Like the latest consensus that I know of is that Christ was actually born, like, you know, 3-4 years whatever before 0 BC. So that's probably a reason why you've heard some dates that don't really add up there. Because you had, you know, there's 3 King Herods in the Bible, and the first is grandfather, the father, and then the son.
I got a question, Robin.
Yeah,
Let
go
me
ahead.
see how you reconcile this. So we have found like small dinosaurs, you know, hundreds of millions of years ago, and we have found like arrowheads from the Stone Age, from before Jesus and stuff. And so, why is it impossible to find his body if we have found things like millions of years ago that are smaller than a human body? And I mean, we're also talking about something that there was a pretty famous rebellion, famous crucifixion, this like revolutionary movement that spread, and I just think like it's why is it impossible to find him when we can do all this
How would we
science?
know? How would we know Jesus' body if we found it?
I mean, we don't even have to know. Like people can
And
find
like
dinosaurs
I
just
know,
by
but
not.
do we found dinosaur bones because they've been fossilized? Okay, the process of fossilization, which like turns the bone into like rock, like so like like the process of fossilization is why we find dinosaur bones. Now, Mary Schwartzer did find some, it was not the DNA or anything like that, but Mary Schwartzer did find some actual organic material in like when she like soaked some of the bones in acid. But like I've listened to what she says about it, and like a lot of it's overplayed on what she actually found because she is a Christian, and so but those bones, the dinosaur bones that we find, are fossilized bones. They're not. I mean, they've been fossilized, which is a specific process that bones go through that will make them last for millions and millions and millions of years. Um, and like arrowheads, an arrowhead is a flint rock. It's a rock. It's not an organic material. So it's not going to decay.
Okay, so why wasn't the movement just? I think I already asked you this, but like you said that people just believed in this, and that's why the movement didn't die. They just like were ideologically captured by this, even though his body was clearly on a cross and buried somewhere.
Well, I mean,
So, like, do you
we
believe
have
his body is buried somewhere, moved
in
somewhere?
I don't know where it's, but like in the Gospels, we have the different stories about he was put in the tomb. If you even just go along with the tomb story, okay, there's different accounts. One of them says that there were two guards in front of the tomb. The other one claims that there were no guards or whatever.
Okay, are those tombs rocks?
There was supposed to be a rock in front of the tomb. Yeah, because like that's what tombs were. Like they were, like family tombs like
So
that.
we can find a tiny rock this big, but we can't find a tomb that's also a rock. Like, I'm just trying to.
I mean, there would have been like a cave, like there would have been a rock road in front of it. But that we don't even know that Jesus was put in one of these. But like the stories in the gospel do not match on like, and then the women came and found that the tomb was the stone was moved.
You can't expect it to match, by the way. You can't expect it to match. I mean, like 10 days later from this, one of us might say Thomas was wearing a maroon shirt, and one of us might say, well, no, it was a red shirt. Like, you can't.
That's true. I mean, but like we don't have corroborating stories. That was what I'm trying to say. We don't have corroborating stories. We have like different stories on, and then I don't know if you've ever read the Gospel of Thomas. Is it Thomas? Do you know the Gospel of Thomas? Is that the one that has the walking, talking cross that comes out of the one of the Gospels?
Yeah, that's a fake. That's a fake.
Well, it's not
forgery.
It's not fake. It's just not part of the canonical Gospels.
I think it's a forgery from what I've listened to.
It was in the it was found in that cache of like other gospels.
Yeah. He's saying that it was say the claim that was written by Thomas is false. Is that correct?
We don't know if it's false.
Like, it is a forgery from what I've read. I think it's like
it's contemporary with all the other gospels. I mean, like it was written.
Yeah, it is, but it's similar to so in most of Christianity, like and it's becoming more popular today. But there is many people in Christianity who there's scholars as well saying that the Book of Enoch wasn't really written by Enoch. It was written by multiple people over hundreds of years. It was more so pop culture. Not again an argument about Enoch, but it's the same thing. It's
Well, I
like
mean, I think all of the gospels
it
are like that.
was
Like the one that's got the gospel about the story about Jesus, and the woman that was going to be stoned, and he said, though he who is without the sin may cast the first stone. Okay, that story is not in our earliest manuscripts. It does not appear until our later manuscripts. So, like, they know that was added to that gospel later on, because the very the as we've collected manuscripts and we have the earliest ones and we date them according, the earliest manuscripts do not have that ending. Is it Mark? Is that the one that's in? Like,
I
there's
don't
an
know.
alternative ending in Mark. Or
I think it's in John.
Okay, John. Okay,
I'm honestly
you know,
skeptical of that claim. There are a lot of times where there is stuff added because they find earlier documents. So there are a lot of times where stuff is missing in the transcription, and then they'll add stuff in. Earlier, a couple things real quick. Talking about one account saying that there were no guards. Likely what you're talking about is the guards were scared because of the earthquake and the angel that showed up, so then they ran away. So that's where the women show up, and there are no guards at the time that they show up. That's where that comes from. See, but yeah, with the Thomas thing, it's like, okay, it was written around that time period, but I'll just say that there's not consensus that it was actually Thomas who wrote it. That's what we're trying to say.
well, I mean, there's not consensus that any of the gospels were written by any of the people that supposedly wrote them. Like, that's what I'm saying.
There is for most of them.
No, the four gospels actually, the four gospels that are in the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are actually they were anonymous. We found that when we found the earliest copies we have, they are anonymous, and they were given the names
Right.
given by the church as a as part of tradition, and like in some like if you get a new standard revised edition, or let's see, what is it? The can't think of what it's called. The NRSV, and the okay, it's got another thing to it, with the Apocrypha and everything. It says in there, like, on the first page of the New Testament, it says that these four gospels were actually they're anonymous. The authors are anonymous. That they were given the names that they were given by tradition.
Yeah. What I'm saying is that from the tradition being passed down, it's said that they were written by these individuals, and or from context clues and whatnot, there is consensus that belief that these individuals wrote them. That does not exist across the board for the Gospel of Thomas, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think the Gospel of Thomas just also is like not consistent with Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John either. It's like Jesus is. It's like it's a different kind of writing too. Like Wes Huff does a pretty good job of explaining it. I listened to the part when he broke it down. I listened to it a long time ago, but I mean, I think you're right that there's a not like perfect consensus, but that's what you would expect with like when people are looking at ancient stuff. I mean, like, even there's no perfect consensus with what year dinosaurs came in. Like, some people date it 10 million years earlier than other people or whatever, like it's nothing is like going to be perfectly consensus among scholars. So I think we rely too much on that, and like it goes back to what I said earlier, that atheists are going to have to deal with at some point. The Bible doesn't even have to be, it doesn't even have to exist for Christianity to still be true, because all you have to do is believe Christ died and resurrected.
That doesn't make
for
it
our
true.
sins.
Though. That doesn't make it true. Just because you believe that doesn't make it true. Do you care? Do you care?
Oh, I'm not saying, I didn't say that. I just said to be a Christian, that's all you need.
I know, but do you care if what you believe is true? I'm just gonna if you were if you were to become convinced through evidence that this was incorrect, that Jesus
Show me his body. That's it. That's all you have to do. Show me his body.
What do you mean show his body? How would I know it was his body?
Like, show me.
What do you mean? His body would be decomposed by now. And if he is the Son of God, he went off to heaven. But just because we can't find a mortal man's body does not mean that he went to heaven. Like, I think that that's just kind of like, that is the only thing that would ever change your mind. Like, do you care whether it's true or not? Because if you don't care if it's true or not, then I don't guess there's any reason presenting any evidence to you.
I think it doesn't matter. I don't think it matters, but I do think it is true. I don't know that it's true, but I think it is true. And even if it's false, even if it is false, there's no way that I would live my life differently. Like if let's say y'all atheists prove God does not exist 100%. That's the only thing that scientists are certain of. It wouldn't change my life in any way.
Okay, well, I don't believe that's going to happen because I don't believe certainty is.
Well, I'm just giving it to you. Let's say that was 100%.
So I don't I would never even claim that we could ever.
But on the other hand, what I'm saying is it wouldn't change my life in any way. But on the other hand, if religion was, let's say Christianity was proved to be true, many people would change their life.
If I found out that if I became convinced through evidence, and it would take better evidence than what there is now, because I think that when you take plural of the plural of data is not evidence. When you take all of these individual claims and you pile them into a pile, it looks like you have a lot of evidence. But when you break them down one by one by one by one, they're not all that good, any of them. But if they was to come up with some sort of evidence, then I would certainly have to believe in Christianity. Because if they're evidence, I would follow the evidence. And if I became convinced that Christianity was true, I would certainly have to become a Christian to avoid hell. I don't even think why anybody would even be dumb enough not to do that. But
there would be
evidence is sufficient to warrant that belief.
That's okay.
Yeah, I think that's the question is for each person, how much evidence is personally enough for you?
I think good evidence. I think you've named off a lot of stuff tonight, and that just is not evidence to me. Like the Shroud of Turin and stuff like that is not acceptable evidence. Because I've researched all this. I hang out with biblical scholars. I have 3 friends who are biblical scholars. Kip Davis. I've talked about Aaron personally myself. I'll follow him. I'll watch all his stuff. There's another one, I can't even think of his name right now, that I follow. He's an Old Testament scholar though. But Josh, Dr. Josh, and so I keep up with this sort of, I try to the best I can.
Well, what I'm trying to say is, that's the question: is what evidence do you personally qualify to be good enough for you to take the leap of faith? Because ultimately, God does require faith.
Yeah,
He's put a lot of evidence out there here in the world, and Paul talks about how creation itself is evidence that God exists.
okay, but we're not
All the
created. Like
hang
like
on.
evolution is like I don't believe in creation. I don't believe we were created. I believe in evolution. I accept evolution. I think it's what it's been demonstrated beyond.
Evolution is old.
I don't know what that means, but like evolution is a
It
fact.
started a long time ago.
It's a fact. Yeah,
So
evolution. Like
No, it
like
isn't. It's actually debatable.
no,
It's
it's
a
not.
theory.
Like
yeah,
it's
I believe in
the
adaptation.
cornerstone of all biology. Of all biology, it's like
So I do believe that adaptation exists. I don't believe the full blown uh, evolution out of
Yeah, I believe
nothing
like
narrative.
like adaptive
But
traits in a family species. But I don't believe in a
yeah,
completely new creature turning out.
but because of my experience with God, and to I'm about to have to hop off because I need to get up early. But
yeah. It's been
Hi,
nice
bro.
it
talking.
matters.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's nice talking with you as well. But it matters to me very much if Christianity is true, and if God is real or not. Like I've dedicated my entire life to this
To
thing
justify the
of
claim.
working to bring people to the truth of the reality of the world is how I frame it.
I'm just tweaking.
And I've given up so many things, which I find absolutely worth it. But I'm not a virgin, but I gave up sex because I'm rededicated to waiting to have a wife. And there's so many other
How about
things that I've lost for the sake of Christ. But I find it all worth it because I know He's real and it's true. And if
you
it
can
wasn't,
gain
I would be dead. Like I not only like the tornado thing, the car crash, other stuff like that, but I've dealt with demons. I have cast them away in the name of Christ. And it worked. I dealt with a
I
demon
got
chieftain game
Hold on,
because
William. Hold on.
it.
I
there were so
remember you
many.
talking that in the chat one time. Like,
Mhm.
yeah. Um,
Yeah. So a demon chieftain came and I thrice tried to cast him away in the name of Christ, like I cast away all the others, and he was phasing in and out of the physical. And I had a friend right beside me. I said, "Hey, you're seeing what I'm seeing, right?" He's like, "Yeah." And then I knew that God wouldn't let me fall, so I stepped out. I squared up, and I said, "Come on, then." And he came towards me, and I felt pure malice, and I felt like the intent that he was coming to destroy me, that I felt he was trying to tell me. And then I felt the Holy Spirit come. And when I had stepped out, I was like, I know God's not going to let me fall. And I felt like there were hands of support placed on me as the Holy Spirit, wrapped around me and came through me and, charged at the demon, then left. And I've have through Christ have pulled demons out of people before as well. I've dealt with other demonic attacks, so for me, like it
but
matters a lot,
you don't do that
and
to children, do you?
I haven't done it to children.
I would,
I haven't come
I would,
across.
yeah, I would hope that
I
you,
I haven't
like, that's
come
the only thing I would
across clear. I haven't
ask.
come across clear, demonic presences in children that I've been called to cast out, but I the disciples, there was the one girl who,
I'm not,
I believe she was
like,
a slave.
I don't believe in demons, but I'm not gonna,
Okay.
I'm not, but I just don't do that to children. Please don't do that to children.
Well, I'm just saying that there was the one girl in the Bible who This was in Acts, and she had the power to tell the future because she had a demon inside of her. And then I forget which disciples it was. I believe one of them was Peter, but then they were ran off by the guy who owned her because he was mad that he couldn't make money anymore.
Yeah, that's. I mean, like I don't
So
like I don't believe like stories in the Bible about demons. So, but um,
well, yeah, but I just I don't want anyone to have to suffer that because I know what demonic oppression is like. But yeah, that's
I do hate that for you. Like that
I've
you don't.
enjoyed talking with you guys tonight.
Yeah, come back, come back.
What's
I'm
up?
sorry. I won't always push back against you. Always, like maybe, you know.
Well, it's okay. I mean, you have your beliefs, and this is all about sharing them.
I try to
Yeah,
be. I
enjoy
try
the
to be
guys.
nice, not
Thanks, Dragon.
not. Yeah, be mean.
See ya.
See ya.
Bye.
Well, that was a good run, Robin.
Oh, I didn't even know if we were still live. I was like,
Oh, we were. Yeah,
I
no,
just kind of took off.
no,
Yeah.
no, that was fine. I was just enjoying listening to the conversation between all of you. That was great. Yeah, it may be a shock to everyone who comes across this live stream, but I'm not quite convinced enough to become a born again Christian.